we talked about it, Jeff. Lockhart came back into the game after spraining her ankle and has not looked great. I mean, this is a senior gutting it out right now because Lockhart is not at her best, and they're going to need her again on Saturday when they host WestCon, a team that will press you for 40 minutes. Lockhart looking to go hard to the rim, dishes it off. Should have been a charge, and there will be. Tuckus takes it as Lockhart went right through her after dishing it off, and that is another great play that won't show up in the stat sheet, but Rachel Tuckus taking the pain to get the ball back.
Uncoincidentally, this is when those plays come out, too. They come out in the fourth quarter games, in the last few minutes. That's where the most important plays get made.
Third on Lockhart, already the fourth on the Huskies in the quarter. Kicked out to Jackson, who's just patient here. She has the distance there and takes a slightly shorter three and doesn't get it to go. Harris has it stripped by Tuckus, goes up with it, knocks it down, and Rachel Tuckus has been the difference here in the fourth quarter.
That was the Division III women's equivalent of Zion Williamson in the Summer League. Just rip it right out of your hands and go right back up. That's a great play.
Tuckus, a player who was just a winner at Braintree High School as Kristen Curley tries to answer the threes off the mark. Has been so good over the last couple of minutes for UMass Boston. Jackson into the front court, and the Beacons will look to settle. A game-high 7-point lead right now with 6 minutes to go. So UMass Boston looks for their second ever win over Southern Maine here at home. An insane stat, but then again, Southern Maine won each of the first 67 meetings. Jackson for Gauthier, deep two, and she's too strong, but who's there? It's Grassi. Blocked by Harris. Big defensive play, and Lockhart will pick up possession. Lockhart looking to drive, met by Jackson. Behind Curley. She's able to hold on. 20 on the shot clock, under 6 to play in the game. Lockhart Curley from behind the free throw line, and that was an insanely quick release there from Kristen Curley.
That's a great shot and probably a possession-saving shot because I'm not sure that Jackie Lockhart's going to come back in the game. She might have even gestured that she's going to come out. And you know, we came into the show talking about this, the importance of a senior guard and a floor general guard. This run, and this game's by no means over, but this run really started with that injury, and you just see how it changes their offense and their spacing and their pace. And again, you've said it a few times, those things don't show up on the stat sheet, but they're so important.
You've got to look at a highlight. I'm assuming one of these is going to be the Zion play. First, it's her ability to not be tied up, and then the throw from Gauthier, a little bit short. This is just a great ball fake from Grassi to knock it down. And then if we've got another highlight, I believe this is going to be Lockhart, the charge there. Tuckus, I don't even think she was trying to take it. She just got ran into so hard. And the final play, great job by Tuckus off of the rebound. See, Harris grabs it, stripped away, and then Tuckus says, all right, if you're gonna look for the pass, I'm just gonna look for my own offense. 7 points and 10 rebounds today from Rachel Tuckus, which is huge because Jelani Jackson's having a bit of a down day. 9 points and 7 rebounds. The Beacons have a 4-scorer today, which is key when one of the big three isn't going off for double digits.
Yeah, and so, you know, we can talk about all the stats, shooting percentage, and how you want to get your shots, and all those things that show up in the box score, but so much of it is just creating extra possessions. You know, if you're not playing your most efficient basketball, well, then you better find a way to create more possessions. That's what a player like that does for you. I think Sarah St. Cyrin, I think she has five or six rebounds today. At least half of those have led to second possessions. Those are really, really important. And even if sometimes if you're not getting a clean rebound, just keeping it alive, getting a hand on it.
Couple notes. Southern Maine does have Lockhart on the bench right now. She is clearly hobbling. We'll see if she comes back in. It's Ramirez and Desjardins, the guards. The other thing to watch is this is Jelani Jackson time. Close games. She has been clutch. 12 of 20 of her 22 in the final, 3-22 the other day against Coast Guard. She doesn't need to have a big game early. It's just when it matters, and she is the Beacons' best free throw shooter, a player who gets there effortlessly. Mazik can't quite grab it, and it's kept in by Eliason in there for the first time with those 3 fouls. Ramirez into the front court, has to slow it down, out for Eliason. Goes down low for Tolman over Gauthier, too short, grabs her own rebound, and she's fouled. Not a terrible foul there if you're Kaylee Gauthier to force Tolman to go to the line. Just the third on the Beacons in the quarter. But I think it is the third on, and it is the third on Gautier's provided some nice minutes for the Beacons as well, as she'll be replaced by Alicia Quinones.
On a made free throw here, we'll get a chance to look at this, but one of the biggest differences in my eyes, first and second half, as far as handling the 2-2-1, is UMass has been much better about getting somebody to the middle. Getting somebody right on the center of that, the Beacon right in center court there. When you have somebody in the middle, there's your kind of release valve. If you don't have somebody in the middle, you're talking about dribbling up the sidelines or dribbling through two bodies, and those more often than not lead to turnovers. We'll take a look at it right here and see if we get somebody in the middle effectively.
Tolman hit both free throws. Now 8 of 10 on the season.
And here you see no middle, and you see it's hard. You got to do it with the dribble. Good job by Jackson.
Jackson for Mazik, 27 on the night. The Beacons have already had 2 players finish with 32 points in a game this year, Grossi and Jackson. The program record is 33. Mazik needs 6. Another thing to watch for UMass Boston with 5 minutes left. Grossi with 6 in the shot clock. The up fake goes hard, blocked, but the foul will come, and I believe it'll be Eliason, not Curley, the second defender there, who's going to be whistled for the foul. 5th team foul on Southern Maine, and if it is Eliason, it's her 4th. So Eliason with 4, and Lockhart sitting next to assistant coach Rachel Burns, the UMaine product, and she won't be the player off the bench. Instead, it looks like it's going to be Michelle Rowe. Grossi knocks down the first, her 11th point of the day.
And I just think we should shout her out quick, too, because obviously that's a pretty significant ankle sprain, too, for her to come back in and give minutes and understand how important she is in this game right now, too. I'm sure it's going to be swollen in the morning, but...
Tuckis grabs the rebound. She's going to go straight up with it, and she gets it to go. 9 points for Rachel Tuckis. Had a season-high 11 in the opener. She's 3 points away from that, and she has been a difference maker here in the 4th. Ramirez calling out instructions, goes into a triple team, runs into Tuckis, and we've got to travel.
Go ahead, say it.
No, you're the color guy.
We just looked at each other and had the exact same look because, again, that's a travel and not a charge. But that is defensive positioning. It's with your hand straight up. It's coming away from the defender. She just makes winning plays. You really can't say it enough.
And Rachel Tuckis, likely in her first year in the conference, will not be the conference defensive player of the year. I think we might have seen that player today in Jackie Lockhart with some of the impact plays she makes. But she should be an all-defensive team member, which the LEC doesn't have, because she just makes so many of those plays, drawing offensive fouls or turnovers where she doesn't get credit with the steal. And this time, a great find of Grossi on the blocks, and the Beacons have a double-digit lead, the first for either team, actually 8-point lead, largest for either team tonight.
And that was, you mentioned the pass. I'll also talk about the post-up. That's exactly how you want to post. You get your hip into somebody, you feel where you want, present yourself on that side, and she ends up with an open layup.
Grossi almost had the steal. Now she gets tied up, and instead it's Tuckis with the steal. Beacons running 3v3. Tuckis for Quinones, and they're going to slow it down. Christina Baugh easily heard above the crowd saying, okay, let's slow this down as we'll see Lockhart and Harris head to the scorer's table as the Huskies find themselves in a pretty big hole here with 3:35 left. Jackson, double team for Grossi, looking to find Tuckis, a reach in as 2 Huskies end up colliding with Tuckis and both fall. And we'll see Grossi head to the line for 2. The question is who the foul is on. It's going to be Curley's 3rd. And right now, if you're Samantha Allen, you have to bring back Harris and Lockhart, just hoping they can be the difference makers.
And in all seriousness, you could take today's game alone, I think, stand alone, and you could take Rachel Tuckis' minutes, and you could make a coaching tape. Those are things that you teach every player defensively from a positioning standpoint with your hands. Most people just can't do them. It's not even a willingness issue. It's just a can't do them. I think the play on the backside on the offensive rebound where she just took it right away and went up with a layup, to have hands that quick and that good, that's not a common thing.
Grossi knocks down the first and the second. Now 15 points, second on the Beacons, 4 of 6 from the charity stripe. The Beacons lead by 10, their largest of the game, looking for their 8th win in 11 tries against the Huskies. And seemingly impossible thought after all those years where Southern Maine not only beat the Beacons but dominated them. Another steal from Rachel Tuckis. Gary Fifield, the longtime Southern Maine Hall of Fame women's basketball coach, is in attendance. He's going to be on the coaching staff for the men's team today, and I'm sure this is difficult for him to watch after he had so many wins here at the Clark. Never lost to UMass Boston in Boston. Grossi up top, wide open, Tuckis this time, and the Beacons are just eating up this Southern Maine defense with pinpoint passing. Curley double teamed. Has been a good shot maker, and we've got a timeout for Southern Maine, trailing by 12. Remember, Southern Maine has made some comebacks this season, but they haven't been with this little time, and they probably haven't been with this much of the momentum going the other way.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest differences in the second half, too, besides obviously the tremendous hustle, and as much as we've talked about Rachel Tuckis, too, has been the ball in Joey Grossi's hands more.
Let's take a look at some highlights. Here's a steal from Tuckis, and think every one of these highlights we're about to see from the last couple minutes will involve one of, if not both, Tuckus and Grassi. So you see the play speeding up, and Jackson has also been really big for the Beacons. Her ball handling, just her confidence with the ball, giving UMass Boston a big edge. So this is Jackson finding Grassi, and you see Tuckus just flashes across. No one goes with her there. I mean, that's a lack of attention to detail by Southern Maine's bigs on that possession. Southern Maine out of the timeout with Ramirez, Desjardins, Curley, Lockhart, and Harris, probably their best offensive five. Curley looking to work on Quinones. He's had a nice day. Picks up the dribble, finds Ramirez, gets it tapped away, but Jackson knocks it to Harris. Now it's Lockhart wide open. It goes up off glass, but lands very gingerly. That ankle, left ankle that she sprained late in the third quarter, it's got to be killing her. 2:20 to go. Beacons lead is 10. Mazik with 27 in the game, picks up the dribble, finds Grassi wide open. Quinones this time, and she knocks Ramirez down as she finishes. Another great pass from Joey Grassi.
And again, it's not long, but you get your best, or if not your best, you're right there certainly. You get the ball in her hands, you let her make plays. She's made the right play time and time again in the second
Lockhart
half.
has her pocket picked by Jackson, off to the races. Curley right behind her, too strong, but Joey Grassi, the lone player there. As Jackson and Curley both were well out of the play. 14-point lead, and Jeff, it felt like for the first 30 minutes we were destined to go down to a single possession game in the final 148. Instead, it has been the intangibles here for UMass Boston. It's been the injury to Lockhart. Have to take that into account. But I think every player who has seen the floor here in the second half for UMass Boston has had a positive contribution.
Yeah, and overarchingly, again, it's the hustle plays, it's the willingness plays. But then as far as the actual basketball goes, too, they've spent more time in the half court, more time with the ball in Joey Grassi's hands, getting her looks at the top of the key. First half, I think she had 7 shots. That might be about the number of times she touched the ball in the half-court offense. In the second half, she's making plays. The ball's finding her at the top. We've seen 3 great assists just within the last few minutes.
Joey's line now, 15 points on 5 of 13 shooting, 13 rebounds. How about a team-high 5 assists? She's got 5 assists for the second straight game. An underrated passer on this Beacons team.
In the open, we talked about finding complementary pieces. Complementary pieces means that we have to have foundational pieces, too. And if she's going to be one of those foundational pieces, you never want to play so fast that the ball's not finding her. And I think in the first half, we were playing so fast up and down, the ball wasn't finding her enough.
We haven't talked about it yet, but the Beacons are 148 away from tying the program record for most consecutive wins to start a year at 6-0. 2015-16, the first year under head coach Christina Baugh, the Beacons did that. They go to Keene State on Saturday. Should be a winnable game. A Now's team that is off to a 1-6 start. The Beacons have swept the last couple seasons. This Beacons team could go into winter break undefeated. Long 3 from the corner, knocked it down, and that's a big-time 3. I believe it was Bagley that time. It was actually Tolman for Southern Maine. Good play out of the timeout from Allen as Jackson's double team keeps it alive for Tuckus. Another double team, whips it across for Mazik. Mazik drives out for Jackson, who says, let's slow it down right now. No reason to rush. 12 seconds left on the shot clock. What can Jackson do? Grassi sets the pick. She doesn't take it. Throws it off glass too strong, and Ramirez has the rebound. Beacons take the full 30 seconds off, though, and still lead by 11. The 3 from the near side. This one's an air ball. Curley the rebound, and Southern Maine on a 5-0 run. Mazik across for Grassi, and as long as the Beacons don't turn it over here, they should be fine. Hit a couple free throws. Mazik with no one pressuring her. Samantha Allen screaming to give the foul. Tuckus out back top for Grassi, who's hit 4 of 6 free throws. Jackson's the player you want with the ball, 30 of 33 on the year. But Southern Maine's just going to let the Beacons play out this possession, and finally, it's about the last thing you want to do, the reach in with 9 seconds left.
You see that so much. That will drive you crazy. If you're going to give one, you got to give it early. If you're not, just play with the possession.
So it'll be 2 free throws for Rachel Tuckus, a chance to get into double digits for her the second time in her collegiate career. Rachel already has double-digit rebounds, so a chance for a second double as well. On the season, came in 8 of 14 from the charity stripe, and I mean, I think it's hard to overshadow Tajay Mazik's 27 points because she kept the Beacons in this game at points, but It's also hard not to say that Rachel Tuckis is your second half MVP, if not your game MVP for the Beacons.
Right, and again, if you get a whole team playing like that, you're going to win nearly every game you play. Because you're never going to fall out of a game like that. You play hard, you play together, you make winning plays. Scoring's not sustainable. That type of play is.
Beacons double-teaming Curley, and Curley is blocked by Quinones. Shot clock turned off. We'll see if Southern Maine elects to foul. Looks like they will. And Jackson, second in the LEC in free throw percentage, will head to the line.
You mentioned a minute ago this team has a chance to extend their season-opening win streak, to a historic level for this program. This team has a lot of good things going for them. They're veteran. They have interchangeable pieces, but also diverse skill sets. And I think that goes back to what you talked about earlier about playing together and enjoying each other. When you have diverse skill sets, you respect what the other person can do that you maybe can't do. And I think everybody on this team brings something unique that maybe somebody else can't quite fulfill.
I mean, Jeff, coming into this year, I think the big question for most people was, does this team have enough depth? We knew about the big three, but the only other players on this team who really had experience were Jamie Staples and Alicia Quinones. You could say a little bit about Kaylee Gauthier being the system for 2 years. So we've got a timeout. The fact that this team is about to go 6-0, and it's not a soft 6-0. Emmanuel College, the team the Beacons beat in their home opener, just beat Amherst College, the number one team in Division III women's basketball last night. So that's a great win. WPI, a strong team out of the NUMAC. Coast Guard, a team out of the NUMAC. This is a good Southern Maine program, and the Beacons look like they're about to win, not big, because this was a close game for most of the contest, but comfortably here at home.
And I think, when we talk about depth sometimes, it's so easy to talk about scoring depth. The word scoring is almost kind of implied with depth. Sometimes when I think about depth at the college level, I think about how many players can you trust as a coach? How many trustworthy players are there? I'll give you a few examples. Sarah St. Cyrin will get the end-box score in a minute, but I can't venture she played much more than 10 minutes tonight. They were 10 valuable minutes. 10 minutes where you gave high effort, you contributed, you ran rim to rim, you put your hands up high, you rebound the basketball. Jamie Staples, not a ton of minutes, very productive minutes. Carrie Ann Farina, not a ton of minutes, very productive minutes. That's how you build trust with your coach. So those 5, 7, 10 minutes, they don't sound like a ton, but game after game after game of trustworthy minutes, that's where you know that in the toughest times, a coach can look down the bench and say, hey, let's go, we need you.
Yeah, I mean, you look at UMass Boston today, and they went 11 deep. The only players not playing, Maya Doherty, who's dealing with a bit of an injury, Nicola Webb. And I think all 6 of the players on the bench right now are players who at least had a little bit of a moment where 1 or 2 possessions where they helped the Beacons. There's another air ball and a 3. This Southern Maine team can't afford to go down big, especially late, because they just don't shoot the 3 well.
And what best teams do is I think they adopt an expression called star in your role. Learn how to star in your role. It doesn't mean you have to be in love with your role or as a role you selected, but when you get a role, star in that role. And that's what's going to be best for the team. And I think tonight we saw 11 Beacons that starred within their role.
Make sure to stick with us for our post-game show. We'll have an interview with Christina Balk, bring you the highlights and the final stats, and then we'll bring you the men's game between UMass Boston and Southern Maine. 2 teams looking to continue a hot start to the year as Jackson's fouled by Harris, and Jelani's going to pad the stats a little bit. Jackson, a quiet game by her standards, 13 points thus far, but 7 rebounds and 3 assists, and when it comes to this Beacons team, it really is a collective effort, honestly, on both sides, the men's and women's team. Doesn't matter if you're small, you're expected to rebound and help out as part of the team effort. Jackson hit her first 2 free throws a moment ago, now 3 of 3 after going 10 of 10 the other day against Coast Guard. And this is another player who the Beacons have just seen flourish. Didn't play a ton as a freshman behind Lydia Vital, an all-conference player at Keene State, as Jackson misses, but Tuckis is there for the rebound. But she has been an absolute star ever since she got some playing time, as Grassi can't believe she's called for the foul. And this game will extend for just a little bit longer. Just what you want. That's only the 4th on the Beacons, but just what you want in the first game of a doubleheader, as we've got a final of 77-65. Jeff, what's your big takeaway from this Little East Conference opener for the Beacons?
I think just the progressive learning with handling adversity. The more times you can play in these games, handle adversity, and then learn how to play through them and win different ways, that's only going to benefit you as you get deeper into the year, deeper into conference play, and hopefully the NCAA tournament.
Beacons are 6-0 for the second time in program history, 2015-16. They made it to the LAC championship game, lost to Eastern Connecticut State. I don't think Christina Ball would be upset if you told her she could get back there again this year. Obviously would want a different result. We're going to take a break, bring you an interview with head coach Christina Ball, and wrap it up here for game one of our Little East Conference doubleheader.
Beacons on the track! Beacons on the track!
My name is Tyler Hart.
Beacons on the track!
Being on the track and field team here is the greatest decisions I've made besides coming to UMass Boston. When you train together in that sort of intensity, you build a sort of a bond with people who are training with you. You know, it's like a higher level of friendship. It's like teammates, it's just a different level. My freshman year, I got a Rookie Athlete of the Year. Outdoor for my sophomore year, I was the first time I went to nationals. When I jump, it's a little difficult considering I have hereditary disorder known as amblyopia.
There we go.
It's pretty much just a partial blindness in the left eye. The best way to describe it is if you have decent prescriptions for contact lenses, you take one of the lenses out, and then you put your hand over the eye with that lens. That's my vision. I rely more on my steps as opposed to my visual perception of how far away the bar is. And since I can't see out of my left eye, I have to sit on the far left-hand side of the class. Hopefully coach for a few years, and coach some high school kids, maybe even coach on a college level as like an assistant coach, and go to PA school, and then do a 5-year program and try to get my loans paid back, and then go from there.
Joined by head coach Christina Ball. Coach, there's a lot of positives we can talk about, but we only have a few minutes before the men's game starts. Let's start with second half MVP of this game, Rachel Tuckis. When you talk about hustle, when you talk about stuff that doesn't show up in the box score, she is that incarnate, but today she did a lot of stuff that showed up as well. Was she the maker in this game?
I think out of our big three, one of them always shows up, so we have a chance. But she does bring an element of toughness to the game that is amazing, and she's a gritty kid, and we need someone to do that day in and day out, and she brings that to us. I felt like in the first half, we were getting killed on the hustle plays, so that was a challenge. Could we start to win those plays? And I don't know if we do that today without Rachel Tuckis.
You went 11 deep today, and it seemed like all 11 players had one or two key possessions where they were able to keep you in it until that fourth quarter where Lockhart gets banged up and you take advantage. How big is that where you can look down the bench and say, I trust all these players, I know that they can make a play?
I think it's a big part of my philosophy as a coach is 7, 8, 9, and 10 have to get better throughout the year so that in February they look confident and comfortable. So, yeah, we start some good things from a couple kids. Obviously, we know who we want to end the game with, but I think it'll pay dividends down the road. These kids getting some playing time, especially in a game like this. I don't know if we've blown anybody out. We've had to earn all of them. So for them to get those kind of possessions and minutes, I think will pay off down the road.
6-0 for the second time in your time and in program history. I know it's just a number, but what does it mean that you've been able to win these close games here in the first half of the season as you kind of work on that rotation, work some players in?
Yeah, I don't know if it means anything for me right now. It's one game at a time. Today we won 20 minutes, and it was the right 20 minutes. So I want to win 40 every night. So I'll enjoy it tonight, and tomorrow we'll move on to Keene State. It's great for women's basketball. It's great for UMass Boston, but it's bigger than 6-0. It's much bigger than that. We got a long way to go.
Coach, thanks so much for your time. Congrats on the win. We'll head up top, look at the highlights from the second half, and then bring you the rest of our Beacons Broadcast Network postgame show.
Celebrate the soggy shoes and the slow starts. Celebrate the lessons learned along the way. These are the wins. Not the shiny nail-biting kind. These are the last a lifetime kind.
And welcome back to the Clark Athletic Center. The men's team's already warming up, about 13 minutes to go before the starters are announced for that game. Let's bring you the final team stats from this game when we get a moment. UMass Boston did not shoot all that well to start the game. End up shooting the game at 43.9% thanks to a 60% mark in the fourth quarter. Southern Maine ends the game shooting 37%. Also, plus 13 on the boards after being just plus 5 in the second half. And the Beacons able to force 18 Southern Maine turnovers. A lot of those numbers that weren't where we thought the Beacons should be in the first half kind of flipped in the second half.
Yeah, if all you saw is the stats on the screen right now, that's a winning basketball right there. The field goal percentage, three-point percentage, out rebounding by 13, that's a winning effort. We obviously know from seeing the game, most of that came not even really in the last 20. Most of it really came in the last 10, 12 minutes of the game. Sometimes that's all it takes. You can get away with doing it, and it was obviously a really tough game. But it's nice to see that they can do it in bursts like that.
Beacons outscored Southern Maine 25-13 after the game was tied going into the fourth. Take a look at the final team leaders, and there's going to be a lot of names that don't show up who had big games. Tajay Mazik, huge for the Beacons, doing most of her damage in the first and third quarters to keep the Beacons in it. Joey Grassi, an efficient 15 and 13. Rachel Tuckus missed a double-double of her own. Jackie Luckhart, despite an injury, had 21 points for Southern Maine. Kristen Curley with 17. Victoria Harris, a double-double for the Huskies, actually just missed 12 and 9. So the Beacons, it just felt like got more from the players outside their big three than Southern Maine did from their depth players.
Yeah, and I thought, in general, I thought they played with more purpose. Even at the beginning when it was a little bit sloppy in the first half, I thought they played with a lot of purpose. I thought Southern Maine actually played very hard. Offensively, I don't know how much purpose they play with, and I would have to see them play again to see, if that is their style. Southern Maine's going to be fine. They got a lot of talent. They have shot making. I'm sure we'll see a tough game later on in the year.
Let's take a look ahead for UMass Boston. They're at Keene State on Saturday, a chance to go 2-0 in conference before the calendar year ends. Final home game of the calendar year next Tuesday at 5:30 against Salem State. And then they head to Puerto Rico. They'll play Messiah College, very good team out of Pennsylvania, on the 29th. Emerson College on the 30th before coming back to the States. One more road game, then they'll host Western Connecticut State on the 7th of January. Big shout out to our production team, especially to the two ladies to my left, Gigi Braga and Allie Crawford, doing a great job. Typically a three-person job up top. They did it with two. Jeff Ebbs, thanks so much for joining me on the broadcast. My name is Seth Dorensky, and to all five of our camera operators, Bree Colucci, Colin Ford, Ellie Falieris, Elsa Banaco, and Haley Catania, thanks so much to them as well. That'll do it for Boston for Game 1. UMass Boston uses a big fourth quarter to defeat Southern Maine 77-65 to tie their best start in program history. Hello and welcome to the Clark Athletic Center for game number 2 of our Little East Conference doubleheader. UMass Boston and Southern Maine taking place here at the Clark Athletic Center as the Beacons, who were picked 7th in the Little East Conference preseason poll, take on the Huskies, who were picked 8th. A crucial game early on in the year. One of these teams want to make the 6-team LEC Conference tournament in February. You take a look. Huskies off to a solid 3-3 start. The Beacons at 4-1, coming off their first loss of the season 10 days ago against WPI. Seth Dorensky, soon to be joined by former UMass Boston men's basketball player Jeff Ebbs and the Beacons athletic performance coach. You see, a year ago, the Beacons finishing 5th, Southern Maine finishing 8th. This Beacons team has made the LEC tournament in every season under head coach Jason Harris. Take a look at the all-time series, and Jeff, while the Huskies hold the all-time lead, the Beacons have won 5 in a row by just 15 points. When you talk about close matchups on a yearly basis, Southern Maine and the Beacons is one to watch. The last 20 games, 12 have been decided by 5 points or less or have gone to overtime. And the last year alone, the Beacons won by 1 here at home and then came back from 8 down in the last 5 minutes to earn a 3-point win in overtime. We're expecting another game where this game will be a one-possession game going into the final 2 minutes, if not the final 2 seconds of the contest.
Yeah, and I think some of that, you and I have talked about it before, and we talked about it with the women, and some of that is just conference play. You get to know each other better. You get to know styles. The upperclassmen get to know each other a little better. And I think you're going to see a close game tonight and a lot of those in conference going forward.
Yeah, I mean, this Southern Maine team, despite the fact they've had a couple different looks the last couple of years, with last year they had a tremendous American International College transfer, Javon Pitts-Young, who was only there for a year but was the leading scorer. This year it's another JUCO transfer this time around, Jacob Thomas, out of Northwest Kansas Technical College. It seems like they have a different leading scorer, but they always have a big-time scorer to lead the way. Take a look at the team stats. The Beacons this year also a 4-1 start, and a big part of it has been defense and rebounding. Number 1 team in the conference in points allowed per game and field goal percentage defense, and lead the conference in rebounding margin despite having a very small team.
Yeah, I'm extremely impressed with just about everything this Beacons team is doing, but in those 2 areas you talked about, defense and rebounding. Defense when you're undersized, rebounding when you're undersized, it can be easy to say, hey, it's a group effort, we get a gang rebound. It is hard to do. It takes 40 minutes worth of effort. Sometimes you're not going to get it for 20, 25. I remember you and I doing these games last year. We talked about, if the Beacons can keep it close on the boards, if they can stay within 10 on the boards. This year they're winning the rebounding battle, and it's showing in the scoreboard. It's certainly showing up in the box score.
Let's take a look at the team leaders for these two sides. UMass Boston talked about their women's team relying on 3 players. How about their men's team and the starting lineup? This starting 5 has scored an absurd amount of the team's points, 91.4% of the team's points, and they play 82% of the minutes. The good news is they are 5 very athletic, and because of you, very well-conditioned players, and they've all contributed in different ways. Charles Mitchell, the team leader in points, Stacey Sinelli in field goal percentage, Michael Boyd in 3-point field goal percentage, Malik Lorquet in rebounding. The only guy you don't see there, because it's more of a defensive stat category that he's typically great at, is Charlie Mitchell. This starting 5, one of the best in terms of cohesive units I've ever seen with this men's basketball program.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. This is, to your point, this is one of the most interesting basketball teams I've been around and that I've seen. I really mean that. It's their continuity is great. They have upperclassmen, juniors, and seniors that play together, that understand each other, and they play really hard. And those are all positive things. That's going to win them a lot of games and keep them in a lot of others. The flip side to it is their depth is going to be challenging. At the end of the game, the women's game, we heard Christina Baugh talk about bringing, 7, 8, 9, 10, bring them along throughout the season. And I think with this group, I think that's Coach Jason Harris's biggest challenge with this group, is finding who 7, 8, 9, and 10 are, and how you can start to build trust and start to bring them along with you. I've spent a lot of time around this group. I know there's a lot of talent here. It's just a matter of getting comfortable with the college game, and again, that starring in your role. You got to find a way to identify that role within these next few games.
You see Dason Sinelli, the Beacons player to watch, coming off a season-high 19 points. On the opposite side, Jacob Thomas, in his first season, back-to-back 30-point games, averaging 36 points per game last week to earn LAC Player of the Week honors. Career-high 38 points on Sunday in the win over St. Joseph's College, Maine, winning the Costello Cup. 15 of 26, 2 of 10 from beyond the arc, but 6 of 6 from the free throw line. He's also one of the team's better players when it comes to rebounds, assists. He is a phenomenal talent, originally out of Houston, Texas. And now the head coach, Carl Henriksen, for Southern Maine. 16th season, the 2015-16 LAC Coach of the Year as he walks away. Southern Maine alum, guy who's been there for forever. On the other side, Jason Harris, the Beacons coach. Had a great season back in 2017-18 when the Beacons won 16 games. Got a difficult challenge building this Beacons program. You were a part. Team won in 2006. They haven't won since. This is a team that should be good being in the city of Boston, and they are building towards that success, that prolonged, sustained success that this program really wants to have.
Yeah, and Coach Harris is really starting to build a solid culture. This team plays a certain way. They have an identified culture, and he gets his guys to play really hard.
Take a look right now at the starters for these two sides. As Southern Maine will go with Jacob Thomas, DJ Anderson, Shimon Chanel, Jay Roberts, and Cameron Wood. You know the crazy part about that, Jeff, is that Thomas, Anderson, Chanel, and Roberts weren't on the team last year, and Cameron Wood, by I remember right, is a freshman. So 5 players who weren't on the team. This is a Southern Maine team who lost a ton of talent. Didn't bring back 9 of their 16 players who saw time, their top 6 players in minutes per game. But some way, Carl Henriksen and his staff were able to add talent every year and be competitive in this league.
Well, and to be honest with you, this is something that as you go through the years, teams build identities, and this is something that I do remember with Southern Maine is their student-athlete retention just within the men's basketball team. That's all I can speak to. But I don't remember showing up year after year and seeing a lot of the same guys. Now, that doesn't mean there wasn't a ton of talent there, but where it can hurt you is that continuity and that belief in the system that we talked about. When you get in those competitive games, that's where it can start to hurt you, is you just have a limited amount of time of playing together. On the Beacon side, I think that's the area I've been most impressed. I remember when this group, between Michael Boyd, the Mitchell twins, Dayson, that kind of core 4, if you will, I remember when they were young and you could see all the talent, but you would watch them play, and it was obvious how hard they were pressing. You watch this group play now, and they look like exactly what they are. They're veteran, they're calm, they know what they're going to do, and it's showing. They play a very efficient style. For as fast as they play, they're very efficient. Low turnover, high shooting percentage, winning on the boards. I mean, when you start talking about all those things, you're not talking about, a fluke or a team with potential. You're talking about a team that's playing the right way, that has a chance to win a lot of games.
All 5 of these Beacons players on the team last year. You've got a senior, 3 juniors, and a sophomore who have always played for UMass Boston. The Beacons brought back 6 of their top 8 players from their rotation a year ago, losing Javaris Hill and Alex Sanchez, and despite the fact they haven't necessarily been able to replace those 2 pieces yet, they have been incredibly successful at 4-1. Jeff, our keys to the game, does anything kind of jump out at you? I mean, these are things that you and I talk about off air with this men's basketball program, things they have to do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I would say the last one, to stay out of foul trouble, and as a lead into the individual outside of the core 4, I was just going to mention, Malik Lorquet has made an enormous jump. Obviously, I see it every day, but he's gotten himself in tremendous shape compared to last year. And also, too, his demeanor, his on-court demeanor, he's aggressive, he's tough, he rebounds hard. I think he owns the boards. With that said, I think he's an individual that when he does get in foul trouble, it hurts them a lot. So, again, if he can play hard, rebound, defend. But, one area I've been really impressed with him, though, too, is when the ball does find the post defensively for him, I think he's smart about when I need to maybe play a little more physical, give a foul, and when it's just not worth it. I think he understands his value on the court.
Lorquet averaging a double-double and leads the conference in offensive rebounds per game. He'll have a tough test today. Southern Maine front court that has quite a few big centers, including Wood at 6'8". The ball is tapped to the Beacons. Wood 6'8", Bailey Van Hout is 6'5", Ian Nagel at 6'7". All guys will see time likely today as Lorquet from beyond the three-point line. The Beacons in their home whites going from left to right. Southern Maine in their navy blue and gold road unis going from right to left as it's Lorquet working on Wood. Goes baseline, loses the dribble amongst 2 players. Blocked from behind by Wood. And it's collected there by DJ Anderson. Anderson has been with the program before but missed all of last season due to an injury. One of a number of players on this roster out of the state of Texas. This is Shimon Chanel. Spent his first 2 years at Gogabic Community College before transferring. Originally from Holland, Michigan. Thomas is the player to watch. Coming off of a 38-point game, 24 points per game, second in the conference. Wood working on Lorquet, who gives up 4 inches. To the corner. And Anderson up top. This is Roberts, who has been good as well, a senior transfer. Thomas from the corner for 3, too strong.
You see it on that first possession. One area I've been the most impressed with the Beacons for the first few games is a stat they really started keeping a couple years ago called contest rate. Now, that should have been an open shot. That's a cross-court pass in the shooting pocket. Did you see how hard Charlie Mitchell closed that out? I mean, those are the little things that are why they're so good defensively right now.
Beacons extend the possession, and now it's Michael Boyd who's tops on the Beacons, shooting over 50% from 3, misses. Charles Mitchell also off the mark. Beacons 0 for 2 on 3s that possession. One of the top 3-point shooting teams in the conference is Charles Mitchell is whistled for the foul, trying to slow down Shimon Chanel. One thing to watch for UMass Boston, this team has been really good in first halves this year, outscoring opponents 199 to 130 in their first 5 games. That's a 13.8 margin per half. Second half, they're -7, so Beacons would like to get another big start. Roberts from 3 is too strong.
No, again, that comes from continuity and playing together too. When you've come out, played with the same starting 5 again and again, you know what your systems feel like and what they look like and what you're going to be able to get off of them.
Lorquet with Wood all over him. Up top for Charlie Mitchell, sporting a slightly different haircut than before the Thanksgiving break. On the near side, Charlie much more of a driver than a three-point shooter. Well short, fights for the rebound, but it's collected by Anderson. Scoreless start here over the first 2+ minutes. The teams picked 7th and 8th in the conference preseason poll. Not that preseason polls always prove to be that specifically right. There's a basket from Chenal, the long two, to give the Huskies an early 2-0 lead. And I think for this Beacons team, seeing that, a lot of frustration after finishing 5th last year and making it to the conference tournament each of their first 2 years. They took it as a bit of a slight.
I know they were vocal about it, especially that older group, too. They've been here for a couple of years now. They know they're getting to upperclassmen. I think they know how hard they work. And it's not a bad thing to have a chip in your shoulder going into conference play.
Lorquet, a brilliant move to go baseline, beat Wood, and then finishing up and under. There's a good move from Chenal fighting for the rebound. Tries to save it, but it's out of bounds as some of the women's basketball players file in. About 3 minutes gone by, 2-2 the score.
One area I've been really impressed with, and just thinking back to games you and I had done last year together, is we talked a lot about penetration on the defensive end. And can you guard straight up and guard one-on-one? And that was an area they had a lot of problems with last year. This group this year, they can all guard individually. When you can do that, it just gives you so much freedom and flexibility on the defensive end. And that's, again, 59 a game defensively is pretty outstanding through the first 6.
And the Beacons haven't necessarily played a pancake schedule. Games against Eastern Nazarene, MIT, Bridgewater, WPI, Framingham State, the one team that has really struggled the last couple of years. As Roberts tries to leak out, leaves it for Thomas, and Thomas is fouled on his way to the hoop. He's looking for his first points. We'll see who's whistled for this foul. It'll be Dason Sinelli's first, team's second here.
I was here for the WPI game, and obviously there's no moral victories, and it was a tough loss. But for this group, I think the big value takeaway from that is I think they played 37 excellent minutes. I don't think they played 40. And in games like that, teams like that, WPI, number 50 in the country, you got to play 40. I don't think you'll see too many games where they don't.
Mariano Rodriguez into the game for Dason Sinelli, who was forced off. I think he's bleeding right now. Rodriguez, a redshirt freshman for the Beacons out of Burlington, Mass., coming off a career-high 9 points, and Boyd will head to the line. Fouled on his way in as he couldn't get it to fall. Slow start for either side. Really, that WPI second half is the Beacons' first bad half of basketball this year. The Beacons were outscored by a heavy margin against WPI, 39-26. They shot 26% from the field and 1 of 10 from distance. That was a game where they led by 7 going into the half and were in till the final possession.
Yeah, and that was imposed by a good team, too. I think WPI offensively, they knew, hey, athletically we're not going to be able to play with these guys, so we got to slow it down. They got in the post a lot. They have a very experienced, prolific post player, and that's what they went through, and they went to it again and again. And it was a good win for WPI, and again, I don't think a terrible loss for the Beacons.
Boyd misses the first, hits the second. Just 6 free throw attempts for Michael Boyd the first 5 games. He's kind of taken a back seat offensively with the play of Charles Mitchell and Malik Lorquet. Do you think that's just him knowing his role, or do you think that's kind of intentional with the Beacons trying to get the ball into the hot hand through their first 5 games?
No, I think he's, at times he's almost become kind of the adult in the room, if you will. I've seen a lot of the older guys step up from a leadership standpoint and no more so than him. And I think him kind of accepting other guys kind of going to work a little bit more than he is, I think that's just a sign of his leadership because he's as offensively talented as they come.
Foul was on Charlie Mitchell. Southern Maine makes 2 subs. Keenan Hendricks and Derek Haney into the game. 2 players who were juniors on last year's side. A pair of seniors, Hendricks out of Owl's Head, Maine, Haney out of Auburn, California. Second year in the program after transferring from a JUCO out in California, Sierra College. Snelly back on the bench after being forced off due to some blood. Roberts all the way across, throws it over towards the Beacons trainers table, almost hit Jelani Jackson, and we'll get immediate timeout after the Huskies turnover. Slow start for both sides. It's UMass Boston 3, Southern Maine 2. Remember, folks, you can follow UMass Boston on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at UMass Beacons. We'll have highlights for you after the game. The Beacons win. There'll be an Instagram of the team's final score. And, of course, you can check out beaconsathletics.com for all of your men's basketball action. We'll take a quick commercial and be back. The Beacons lead early 3-2. neither team makes any changes out of the first media timeout. 15:39 to go in the first half. UMass Boston leads 3-2 as Mark Monroe works on Cameron Wood. Pair of players 6'6" or taller. Charles Mitchell knocks down his first three, 148th of his career, second all-time in program history behind Tony Barros. And now a turnover on the Huskies.
One thing to watch offensively today for UMass, and just again another sign of their maturity offensively, watch how they use screens, and they make choices off of screens. Right there, Charlie catches dribble handoff, which is kind of a de facto screen. That was Charles. Kind of a de facto screen. Defender goes under. That's a shot right away. That's confidence, and as you get older, you understand, hey, if you're going to go under, I'm shooting that right away every time.
Jason Sinelli replaces Charlie Mitchell. Charles Mitchell just knocked down a three. On the other side for Southern Maine, Ian Nagel, the junior out of Bangor, Maine, 6'7", checks in for the first time. Shimon Chanel back in as well. As Charles Mitchell knocks down back-to-back threes. Already 2 for the game. He's got a game-high 6. Came in hitting 15 of 39 threes on the season. 4th most made threes in the conference.
In the women's game, we talked a little bit about star in your role towards the end, and Rio, we call that's the only thing we call him in the weight room is he needs to become a star in that defensive role, coming off the bench, become an elite perimeter defender. He's done that through the first 6 games.
That's Mariana Rodriguez, the freshman of Burlington, Mass. Big-time three-point shooter. That's where he's comfortable offensively, but also a freak athlete from everything I've heard, both in practice and in the weight room. So we'll see DJ Anderson head to the line for a pair after Rodriguez picks up his first foul. The good news for UMass Boston, no one's in foul trouble. The bad news for the Beacons is they've already committed 4 fouls compared to the Huskies 1. Anderson hits the first and drains the second for the team's second leading scorer and second leading rebounder. 9.9 points and 6 rebounds per game in 7 appearances this year. Lorquet waiting to check back on for the Beacons. Boyd gets past Haney, off glass, no good. Monroe the tip, keeps it alive for Sinelli, can't go. The tip again, and he'll go to the line for 2. 4 looks within 4 feet. Beacons can't get the friendly bounce, but they will draw 2 free throws as Jason Sinelli, the lone 4-year senior on this roster, heads to the line where he is 6 of 9 on the season.
And he's kind of the Swiss Army knife of the 5-man starting group, too. He can really do anything they ask him to do. He can score when it's required. He can go long periods without scoring. But he always defends. He rebounds hard. He's a leader for this group. And he's really grown into that role. I've seen how hard he's had to work and has worked to get into that role.
Yeah, just another energizer bunny for this Beacons team. And a guy who typically is playing bigger than his size, listed at 6'1". Plays the 4 typically, sometimes plays the 5, even though he wants to be listed as a guard/forward. Maybe for a different program, not for UMass Boston during his tenure. Up top, it's Nagel looking for the handoff. Hands it over for Hendricks, takes the contested 2-2 strong, and Charles Mitchell grabs the rebound and thought about running.
Now, that's just a little move to the baseline by Lorquet there, too, but just those 2 quick shuffles just to get in front, show yourself. That probably could have been a layup. 9 out of 10 times. He did a great job sliding down, taking that away.
Sinelli short on the long 3 from the wing. They pass it around for Hendricks, who's had a decent career. 5 points per game, 1 rebound per game this season for Southern Maine. A lot of dribbling there from Jacob Thomas, who hasn't gotten going yet in this contest. Haney across, stolen away by Mitchell. Already with 6, has Haney right with him off glass and good. An early 8 from Charles Mitchell, 8 of the team's first 13, and Southern Maine forced to use a timeout.
I just think that last possession, you look defensively. We talk about continuity on the offensive end, but we talk about trust and continuity defensively too. That last possession had 3 ball screens, 3 on-ball screens, all 3 times. Switch, pick up your dribble, cross-court pass to a turnover. Those are things that in years past I don't see that type of over-helping and commitment. When you start seeing the team over-help and over-trust, you know you're in a good place defensively.
And, Jeff, right now it seems like for Southern Maine, just 4 points in the opening just past 6.5 minutes. It's a lot of one guy has to beat one guy. They're not working well as 5, and that could be in large part because they don't bring back that many players. The Beacons had 6 out there to start this possession, which that one's not going to be allowed. Whereas the Beacons have that chemistry we talked about in the pregame with all of these guys having played together for one, if not multiple years.
Yeah, and USM is stagnant right now, and to be honest with you, from what I remember in years past, that is Southern Maine a little bit. They're stagnant. There's not a ton of ball and body movement. They're going to rely on playing one-on-one.
Hendricks down low for Haney, working on the slightly smaller Rodriguez. The jumper no good, and Lorquet grabs the rebound. He had 44 rebounds in his first 3 games, just 12 the last 2. That slowed him down, but still averaging 16.1 rebounds per 40 minutes is Charles Mitchell well short. Rodriguez recognized it, kicks it out for Charles Mitchell, who has 8 of the Beacon's first 13. 13 on the shot clock as that ball was not close to hitting the rim. Charlie Mitchell for Rodriguez, looking to drive, kicks it out for Boyd, who's the Beacon's best player with the shot clock ticking down. Hits the side of the rim, and we've got a foul. And I'm not sure which Beacon will be whistled here. I didn't see Lorquet clear out the Huskies player. It'll be Boyd instead who's whistled for the loose ball foul. Boyd was coming off either way, but that's his first, team's 5th. Beacon's providing a little bit of full court pressure here, although they'll drop off quickly. Thomas and Chanel in the backcourt alongside Anderson. Thrown ahead for Charles Mitchell. Runs it down, and it's pinned to the basket. We'll see what the call is here. Was it off the glass first, or is this going to be a jump ball, as finally the slightly taller Nagel finally gets it out of there. It was pinned in pretty good after the rundown block from Anderson. Now the conversation comes, and we can take a look. We slow it down. Was that ball off glass and blocked, or was it blocked beforehand? Because that's the difference between a goaltend and a Southern Maine possession, and here we see it. Charles Mitchell did a great job to run it down stutter steps, and the ball is blocked before. Ooh, no.
It's a good block. That's going to be a good block. It's still on the way up, too, and I'm not sure it hit the glass.
It was closer than it looked. The Beacons got the turnover and then lose the possession arrow there. Anderson working with it. Such a big addition back to this team with some continuity. We've got a foul on the block, and it's Thomas trying to get position on the block against Charlie Mitchell, who's called for his first, team's 3rd.
Yeah, and again, Southern Maine right now, you're not seeing any continuity. It's almost like you're waiting for A to happen so that B can happen, and that's not the way you want to play. You want to be able to play with some rhythm and flow and learn each other, and right now they just look very stagnant.
Beacons with 4 of their 5 starters out there right now. Mariano Rodriguez in for Boyd, although Rodriguez has played most of this first half. Lorquet, a nice little move. Too strong, fights for the offensive rebound, goes up again and is fouled by Roberts. And Malik Lorquet, the biggest thing, I mean, you talked about conditioning, you talked about strength. My big thing is he has shown a little bit more veteran savvy this year in avoiding the obvious fouls. He extends plays, but he doesn't reach over for the obvious over the back. He doesn't make contact there. That's a great job of extending a play without fouling.
Yeah, again, I just love the aggression, too. A play right there, ball swings to the top of the key. He's on the block. That's what we call a duck in. And he didn't duck in soft. He ducks in aggressive and hard. He gets low. That's exactly how you coach it.
And you just see going up hard right into the smaller Roberts, who's whistled for the foul. We've got our second media timeout, but first, some more thoughts from Jeff.
I was just going to say, you see, you play the game long enough and you play with bigs, and every big wants the ball. And you got to get bigs the ball. You want to keep them involved. Every big wants it. As a guard, sometimes we almost say, show me you want it by your positioning. Are you low? Is your butt down? Are your hips into somebody? Are your hands up and presentable? Bigs who do that, they want the basketball. The way Lorquet just ducked in, every time you see a big like that, you better get him the ball because his intent is to go score.
So I'm going to give you a hypothetical because we haven't talked about this at least on air. Javaris Hill last year was the Beacon's best freshman big. I don't think there's an argument. Javaris was a difference maker. If the Beacons had Javaris this year, would Malik be able to have done as much as he's done? Obviously, he could still put in the same work, but he wouldn't be getting the ball as much necessarily. Wouldn't maybe even be playing as many minutes.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're fitting him into a tougher role, a role that he might not understand as well, that might take him a little bit longer to learn. And you might be fitting into a different position because a player like Javaris Hill, you gotta let him shine. And again, I just think this is another example of role definition and starring in your role. He knows exactly who he is and what he needs to be for this team, and he's doing a great job.
Lorquet, 1 of 2, came in second on the Beacons in made free throws with 16, on the most attempts at 26, shooting just over 60% from the charity stripe. Roberts working on Boyd, who's much better at defending guys who are bigger than him despite giving up some size. And it's Lorquet, another rebound.
To your point with Mike Boyd, too, one thing I hear about basketball players all the time is when somebody is not vertical, we say, well, they're not athletic. He's not as athletic as some other guys. Mike's not vertical. He is athletic. He's quick with his feet. He's strong. He's a little, I hate to use the analogy again, but he's a little like a Marcus Smart type player.
And such a high basketball IQ as Charles Mitchell knocks down his third three of the first half already. He's got 11, and the Beacons lead by a game-high 13. Kicked out for Roberts, who has had 29 in a game this year. Elects not to shoot the three, and then too strong on the lay-in as Southern Maine has been in a long drought right now. Mitchell wants the ball. Instead, they go to Sinelli. Back out top for Boyd. Charles hit 3 threes in the last 5 minutes or so. Lorquet up top, 3 Beacons in the vicinity, and it's Charlie Mitchell who wants it. We close it on the midway point of this first half. Charlie Mitchell kicks it out for Charles Mitchell. Wants a fourth. Little bit off the mark there, and the rebound goes to Haney. Was just offline from Charles Mitchell. One of a number of Boston products on this team as that ball's thrown away. We've seen Southern Maine try to post up Thomas on Charlie Mitchell twice, and Charlie Mitchell gives up the size. It's been an offensive foul, and the ball was thrown away. Great work from Charlie Mitchell to deny that post entry.
We've seen multiple possessions almost every time up the court where the defense is almost inverted. We end up with a guard walling off a post and Lorquet out on the perimeter, and both ends of that doing a terrific job. If you have that type of defensive versatility, you're going to be able to play with an array of teams.
Charles Mitchell wide open in the corner, misses. Lorquet misses the tap back, but Boyd comes down with the rebound. 10 minutes to go exactly. The Beacons out to a 13-point lead, make it 16 as Dason Sinelli knocks down his first three, and that's an area where he has really worked hard over his 4 seasons.
Yeah, he would be the Tajay Masick of the men's team. Again, a guy who came in with skills and maybe not enough confidence and or freedom to come in and do them. And as he's grown throughout his 4 years here, he's become one of their biggest contributors.
Masick, of course, 27 points in the Beacons' win over Southern Maine earlier today by 12. Take a commercial break and be back as we've hit our third media timeout.
Paris changed my life, and I got there through UMass. Those very specific seminal moments in Paris. The subway. A man in a tuxedo walked in, and a woman in a long gown. And it was stunning. It all hit me.
See, the Beacons coaching staff have to be happy with the way they have started. 20-4. Beacons team was a slow start. It was 3-2 at the first media timeout, but the Beacons right now on a 17-2 run. We're past the midway point of the half. Roberts, one of the team's leading scorers, working on Sinelli and goes up with a right-hand hook shot. He's been way off the mark with his looks. That one was obviously going to be short. A player who is capable. He scored 29 against Bowdoin, including a game-winning free throw, but it's just not looked comfortable to start this game.
Well, the great thing about the post defense for the Beacons right now, too, is defending with high hands and going straight up, that rule of verticality. You're not seeing anybody's hands come down, creating fouls where they don't need to be there. Make guys make shots.
Monroe back into the game for Lorquet out there with Charlie and Charles Mitchell, Mike Boyd, and Dason Sinelli. Charles Mitchell draws contact, dishes it over for Sinelli, and one. Just hit a three. Now we'll do it in the old school way, or possibly will, and that was a great feed from Charles Mitchell, driving to pass rather than driving to shoot.
Yeah, we talked about that a lot in the women's game, and it took the Beacons girls some time to get adjusted to it. That's a great. You get your head and shoulders by somebody, especially a guard like Charles Mitchell. He's so fast, so quick. When his head and shoulders are by you, you've already beaten your man. Now it's time to make a play. Finish, make a play. That was a great play.
15 foul on Southern Maine, and the third on Jay Roberts, one of the starters and the second leading scorer for Southern Maine with 3 quick fouls. So he's likely out for the final 9 minutes of the first half and maybe even the start of the second half, depending on how Carl Henriksen wants to deal with it. It's been a terrible start for the Huskies as they get the ball in the hands of Thomas. Instead of shooting, he'll dish it out for the man at the three-point line, Shimon Chanel, who knocks down a three, just his second of the season. 2 of 6 now. Thomas, the guy who came in second in the conference in points, as it's Charlie Mitchell all the way to the hoop and draws contact from Cameron Wood. And the one thing you can say about all 5 of these Beacons, but especially the Mitchell twins, is they are not afraid of anyone.
And it's early, and there's a long way to go, and I don't expect this to be a pushover game. But what you can tell about all 5 Southern Maine right now is there's not much interest in defending on the perimeter. Everybody's out on an island. You don't see them down the stance. You don't see them sliding. And if they have a disadvantage defending on the perimeter, you certainly don't see them helping. Our guards are good enough that if you show them a lane to the basket, they're going to make the right play 9 out of 10 times.
Charlie Mitchell knocks down both. He has really worked on his free throw shooting. 81.8% tops on the Beacons. Now 20 of 24. First on the teams in made free throws, despite not being a player you'd expect to play in the post. Chanel, one of the 3 JUCO transfers on this team. They go down low, and Monroe able to come up with the block of Cameron Wood. Mark Monroe gives up an inch, but made that play. Charles Mitchell hard to the hoop, and he is blocked. Sinelli, though, fights for the rebound, and the Beacons have a chance for more second chance points. Charles Mitchell looking for his 4th three, and this time he knocks it down for the corner. It is a 20-point game, and we're not even 12 minutes in.
There were 3 unselfish plays all made in a row. Sinelli kicking it out, not going back up with it, trying to force it. Pass again, extra pass again, leads to an easy shot.
Chanel from the elbow. He's got a quick 5. 5 of his team's 9 points. And honestly, this team is extremely unselfish for UMass Boston. The one guy who, and I'm not criticizing here, Charles Mitchell has been less unselfish, but that's because he's found his scoring touch, which he didn't necessarily have as a sophomore. As Charlie Mitchell pulls up, a little bit strong, as Monroe can't quite keep it alive. And it's great to see because you need a go-to scorer, and thus far for the Beacons, Charles Mitchell's been that, averaging 18 points a game.
You know, what I love about it, too, is you watch this team go up and down. They're clearly an athletic group. And sometimes
Sinelli blocks it, and Monroe makes the athletic save.
Sometimes when you're that athletic, there becomes a dependency on that athleticism. They understand we don't have to utilize that all the time. They play together. They make the right basketball play. And when they need to, they'll be more athletic than the group they're playing.
Sinelli goes hard into Cody Hawes and gets the basket to go. Hawes just in, a freshman out of Carmel, Maine. Thomas the pull-up 3, and there's the first 3 points for the conference's second leading scorer. A good sign for Carl Henriksen as his team's now down 17. Charles Mitchell wants the answer, and he's got 5 made threes, and that was a heat check right there. If you missed that shot 5 seconds into the shot clock, that's not a good look, but Charles has been red hot, 17 points already.
And I have to say, if you're Southern Maine defensively right now, you got to look like you want to play on that end. Right now, they do not look like they want to play.
Shimon Chanel a bit too aggressive trying to get the ball back after Sinelli grabbed the rebound. Quick 17 fouls on Southern Maine after the Beacons had 4 early. And that's the first on Chanel as the Huskies are going to try to make some subs. But first, immediate timeout. The Beacons lead by 20 for the 3rd time. We've got some highlights, and I think we're going to see a lot of Charles Mitchell. We bring them to you right now. First, it's Mitchell's great dish off for Sinelli, who has been having another strong game. Here's the 3 from Chanel, who has been by far the best offensive player for the Huskies. And then this was Wood getting blocked by Monroe. The Beacons have done a great job of denying some of these bigger post players for Southern Maine. This time I believe it's Sinelli, and then a great job by Monroe barely getting that ball out before he stepped out. So again, it's hustle plays that have been the difference. You talk about conference play, and sometimes it's not the difference in skill. It's more of those 50-50 plays that can cause a big difference.
Yeah, and if I'm on the Southern Maine coaching staff right now, that's all I'm talking about. I'm not talking about offense, ball movement. Those things are secondary to just wanting to play. This Southern Maine group right now, I know I'm being hard on them. They don't look like they're ready for their first conference game of the year.
Well, it's their second. Remember, they lost big to UMass Dartmouth a couple weeks ago at home, which is maybe even more disconcerting because you've had a game already, and you lost 83-56 to a good UMass Dartmouth team. Brian Baptiste always has his team ready for conference play. They've been towards the top half the last couple years as Sinelli hits the front end of the 1-1. But, I mean, you've had a couple weeks, and it doesn't seem like they've made those adjustments.
No, and I will say, too, and this is my first time getting a look at this USM men's team, but sometimes that needs to start with your best player when you're in a situation like this. His responsibility right now has been Charles Mitchell, and a few times in semi-transition, he's just getting lost. If that's what your leading scorer and your best player is going to be like on the defensive end, that's hard to overcome. He needs to step up and be a leader for his group right now, especially on the defensive end.
Jacob Thomas is out right now. That was almost saved by Haney. And some more frustration as Keenan Hendricks threw a pass across and there was no one there. Beacons lead by 22, their largest lead of the game. And now we'll see Shimon Chanel provide some pressure on Charlie Mitchell. Beacons out there with Charlie and Charles Mitchell, Dason Snelly, Malik Lorquet, and Michael Board. Their starting 5 leading by 22. Lorquet on the post entry, tapped away by Wood, and Southern Maine the steal. Charles Mitchell almost had it right back.
And that's just a really tough angle. Post entry right from the top. It's the right idea. It's just a really tough angle to make that pass from.
From the corner, Hendricks too deep, gets his own rebound, finds Wood going downhill, passes it out to the corner, wide open three, and Southern Maine picks up 3 points from Cody Hawes, who came in with 12 points in 7 games this year.
And that's where second chance points are so important, because for a team that's not getting great looks right now, their best look at the game comes off a second chance opportunity.
That long rebound, or kind of a in-between rebound, tough to anticipate for the Beacons. As Lorquet gets around Wood, this should be an easy two. Instead, a good denial by Hawes, the freshman providing good minutes. And Charles Mitchell trying to get the steal, tying up Hendricks. And this time the possession arrow goes the Beacons' way. That's a nice job by Hendricks to prevent what would have been an easy layup if not for him diving on the ball.
That is such a great play, though, by Charles Mitchell. Not giving up on the play, not just running back on defense, and really the play after the deflection, the tip, being the first on the floor. Those are winning plays right there.
19-point Beacons advantage with 5:15 to go. So it was a close game for the first 6 minutes. The Beacons going on a big run, and they've been red hot from distance. Boyd had Lorquet working on the smaller Chanel. Instead, Boyd will just go right down Broad Street and lays it at the left hand as Lorquet cleared some space.
And he had that set up the whole time. Anytime you get that switch, there's not much offense to run after that.
Yeah, difficult for Wood, the freshman out of Winthrop, Maine, one of 3 bigs who play consistently for this team, 6'5" or bigger. Chanel whirling dervish and throws it up, and Shimon Chanel has been a little bit of that leader you were asking for Southern Maine. Not one of the team's top scorers on the season, but has been very active here in the first half. Easily the team's leading scorer tonight.
No, he's been aggressive. He's using his strength, and he's getting in the lane and taking good shots.
One of a pair of players from Holland, Maine on the Southern Maine basketball rosters. They have a freshman center on the women's team as well, Audrey Pohl. And Holland, Michigan, interesting place. It's typically the home of the national championship for Division III volleyball because 2 of the best teams in the country, Hope College and Calvin College in women's volleyball, are there. As the Beacons get a steal, 2-on-1. Sinelli off for Charlie Mitchell. Back for Sinelli. Maybe too many passes, and the Beacons unable to convert, and Lorquet will be called for the foul. That just looked ugly the entire way.
Yeah, not textbook transition, but again, you just see the willingness to play together and make passes. You're not going to hate that if you're Coach Harris.
Waiting on the foul. It should be the first on Lorquet, 6th on the Beacons, and it will be. Final media timeout. The Beacons can afford a turnover or 2. They're up 19 with 3:55 to go in half number 1.
Something I discovered in myself is that if I have a goal, I can accomplish it.
It's a well-rounded experience.
At a Division III school, you primarily a student athlete, so the school is really shaped around you developing yourself as a complete individual.
It helps a lot that you have a family with your team that can guide you.
UMass Boston in the huddle. You see the Beacons wearing those neon green shirts with the logo on the back. That is their Hope Happens Here warm-ups. Beacons UMass Boston Student Athlete Advisory Committee last year became the latest school to join the Hope Happens Here Foundation, which is a group started at St. Michael's College up in Vermont that focuses on destigmatizing mental health issues amongst college athletes. And this is the Beacons men's and women's basketball teams' Hope Happens Here game. The men's hockey team will have their game on Friday. An initiative started last year by a member of the UMass Boston women's hockey team, and this year Dakota Keene, one of the SAC presidents, has continued to push that as an initiative here for UMass Boston student athletes. 3:47 to go in the first half. Beacons lead by 19 thanks to a huge first half from Charles Mitchell with 17 points and Jason Sinelli with 11. Pass down low for Wood, and he's able to finish after Lorquet got a piece of the ball. And the other player outside of Chanel who's looked good for Southern Maine has been Cody Hawes, who's come in and made some impact plays, the freshman out of Herman High School.
And that was by far the best offensive possession for Southern Maine. They got 2 semi-ball reversals off of handoffs, a good attack in the basket, and a nice attempt right next to the basket. They need much more of that. Charles
Mitchell short on a 3, looking for his 6th of the half. Went over 150 on his 3rd attempt, so 152. Still well shy of the program record set by Tony Barros. That's 326. He's now got a 152. He might have to increase his work rate a little bit as Lorquet goes hard into Wood, draws contact, and he'll head to the line for 2.
And for all the good we've talked about Malik Lorquet so far, and this is not a negative at all, the next step for him is when he does get 2 feet in the paint next to the basket, he has a tendency to be a little out of control. You saw him there get there, and he's almost falling over. A little more vertical, and just understand your size and your strength and your shoulders. He's just going to jump right through people.
Lorquet's first free throw is too strong. Now 1 of 3 on the day. Jay Roberts will check on for Cameron Wood. Wood just picked up his second. Roberts is out there with 3 team fouls. Shimon Chanel heads to the bench, and checking back in is Keenan Hendricks. Yeah, Jeff, I would totally agree. The one negative I would say about Lorquet, and it's not a negative, it's just a thing he's got to work on. Lorquet on the season is shooting 43% from the field. Most of his field goal attempts are within 6 feet. You want to shoot a little bit better, and he has had a tendency of missing some layups, some bunnies, and then grabbing his own rebound and maybe scoring the second, third attempts as we've got a travel here on Hawes, and the Beacons will get it back.
And in his case, it's nothing more than the learning curve because his attacks are fantastic attacks. The WPI game was a great example of that where he was undersized as the big man in that game, but he was killing off the dribble. He's getting in there, spinning, getting right to the square. But if you're getting to the square off balance, you're not going to finish as much.
Lorquet against the smaller Roberts, working with 3 fouls, goes hard into him, and they're going to get a block. The 4th foul on Roberts, and that was probably the only way that Roberts was going to deny Lorquet a basket by getting that charge call, and he flopped, hoping the contact into the body was enough. As Carl Henriksen right now talking to one of our referees, but not enough, and that is tough. You lose your second leading scorer with 2:29 to go in the first half with 4 fouls. I can't picture seeing Roberts back until maybe the 12-minute mark of the second half, and that's if you really, really need his impact.
Well, and we talked about Southern Maine a little bit on the defensive perimeter. They got to be more post aware as well. The ball's getting in there, and maybe they're comfortable leaving one-on-one, but when you're big as in foul trouble and he's one of your leading scorers, you got to understand we got to dig down, we got to give help, we got to compact the basket line. It's hard to just leave Lorquet down there one-on-one and play without fouling.
Beacon's putting some full-court pressure on. Lorquet to the bench. Mark Monroe back in. For Southern Maine, they brought on Peter Drennan, and now Ian Nagel back into the game for Roberts. Hawes will man the point here. Jacob Thomas, 24 points per game, back-to-back 30-point games. He's had just 3, and Charlie Mitchell is not leaving his side. Hendricks double team, drives baseline to the corner for Hawes, who was trying to avoid stepping out of bounds, backdoor cut, and Hawes able to finish over the smaller Mariano Rodriguez, and now we've got a warning for delay of game. I understand that the possible delay of game. That was nothing from Hawes, just tapping the ball after finishing. That seemed pretty minimal.
Yeah, that was quick. That was definitely a quick whistle on that.
Officials for today's game, Stephen Castle, Brian Gade, and Leon Graves haven't had a lot of controversy just because of the way this game is played out. 17-point Beacons lead with under 2 to go in the first half. Beacons with another big first half. They have been dominant in first half this year as Monroe goes off the glass. Nice move to get around the taller Nagel. And the Beacons lead out to 19. It's been as many as 22.
And he is somebody who's getting better and better by the game, a little more confident on the offensive end.
Monroe, a senior transfer, spent his first 2 years at Massasoit Community College. Last year was one of 3 bigs in the Beacons rotation at the center spot. Nagel working on Monroe, kicks it to the corner for Hawes over Charlie Mitchell. A little bit short, and Sinelli skies for the board. 3v3 they go. Sinelli wisely pulls it out. That's not necessarily the 3 you want on a fast break. Your 3, your 4, and your 5 positional-wise. Beacons call out directions with a minute to go, 15 on the shot clock. Charlie Mitchell looks for a 3-line drive, a little bit too strong, and Nagel with the rebound. Now it's Thomas losing his balance, turns it over. Mariano Rodriguez has Charlie Mitchell out ahead. Instead he'll keep it, goes into Nagel, too strong. Mitchell trying to battle for it. Sinelli's there, and the rebound falls to Hendricks, and we've got a stoppage, and Jacob Thomas never even came out of the paint as he is clearly in some pain. Not good news for Southern Maine, the team's leading scorer, a guy who came into today's contest with 24 points, 5.7 rebounds, 2.1 steals, and 1 block per game, shooting over 50%, and he's in some serious pain right now, but he'll try to stay on. Chanel back into the game as likely it's Southern Maine's last possession. Well, they look for a 2-for-1, and Chanel's too strong. Runs over, keeps it alive. Chanel fighting for it. Monroe arm bars it away, and the Beacons have a chance to play for the last possession, up 19. Charlie Mitchell, Mariana Rodriguez, Dason Sinelli, Mark Monroe, and Michael Boyd. And the Beacons are going to use a 30-second timeout to get the best possible play here.
I just want to say this quickly, too, is, it was a great rebound by Mark Monroe on the other end. And, one thing we tell especially our younger athletes in our strength program here is when we get them in, we kind of tell them pretty blatantly, I don't need to hear you talk. And what we mean by that is that I don't need you to tell me how hard you're going to work or how much you care or how much it means to you, because your actions are going to tell us everything. Mark Monroe, between his first year here and what he looks like today, tells you everything you need to know about his willingness to get better and fill a role on this team. He's probably, and I don't know this for a fact, he got to be 30 to 35 pounds lighter than he was last year. Significantly more athletic. You can see it in the way he runs 94 feet. And no surprise, he has a role on this team, an identified cut role that he's doing a fantastic job in.
And the Beacons need it because, again, we talked about it. Without Javaris Hill, the Beacons went from 3 bigs they really trusted to 2 bigs, and they've done a great job of mixing and matching. Saw them play a little bit together against WPI and Framingham State. It looks good as Tommy Burris is on for the first time. Freshman 3-point shooters quickly slowed down by Brennan. Burris drives with 5 seconds, out for Sinelli with 4. Tries to get to the hoop, draws contact, throws it up, no good. And that will do it for the first half. So probably not the play the Beacons wanted, but a decent look nonetheless. 19-point lead. Jeff, what are your thoughts?
I just want to say about that, that's great coaching, too, by Jason Harris. You get a freshman who can fill a role in this team in the future, and you find a way to get him time on the court. Now that you say, well, it's only 15 seconds, those 15 seconds towards his development, his confidence, mean everything, just getting the call off the bench.
A player who came in, the Beacons have very high expectations for, and gets a couple seconds. We're going to take a commercial break and then bring you an interview with head coach Jason Harris before we play our halftime show here on the Beacons Broadcast Network.
The University of Massachusetts Boston, with its scenic oceanfront campus, easily accessible to downtown Boston, is recognized as a model of excellence for urban public universities. 16 NCAA Division III sports are part of the more than 100 student organizations that create an engaging campus life in America's biggest and best college town. UMass Boston, Boston's urban public research university for the 21st century.
Joined by head coach Jason Harris at halftime. Coach, you lead by 19. You led pretty comfortably after a slow start, but looking at the stat sheet, everything's pretty close except for the turnovers. 12 for Southern Maine, 2 for you guys, and you've turned that into 16 points. How big is your defense in terms of helping out your offense here in the first half?
Well, honestly, on those 12 turnovers, they're just kind of throwing the ball away. I'm more impressed with a little bit of our half-court defense. We picked our conversion defense up there midway through the first half. I didn't really love the last 5 minutes. A little bit of fool's gold with some of our shots. So, I'm going to answer whatever I want to answer.
The Southern Maine, they have a big front court. They've got some guys who run 6'5", 6'7", 6'8". How happy are you? Malik and Mark have not only been extremely competitive in the paint, they've been getting some big blocks. They've been able to keep the ball going. You guys have a decent amount of second chance points. How happy are you just in terms of your ability to compete down low?
Kids are doing a good job on the glass. I mean, they're doing a good job. I got to give it to Malik. I got to give it to Dason, Mark. Even our guards are coming in and helping a little bit on the rebound. So,
I know you've got some notes. Do you have anything you specifically want to talk about here at halftime about your team's performance thus far?
I'll say two things. They're not about my team at all. They're about their team. Our last 6 games, they've all been, I think it was 19 points for the last 6 games. They're all one-possession games. That's the way it's always been. And the league is always one possession. These guys are going to make a run. They got maybe the player of the year and Jacoby Thomas, who's got 3 points. I guarantee he's not going to end with 6. That kid's going to get us 20, all right? But it's on us to make sure that he's got to take 20 more shots to get it.
Coach, thanks very much. He's not wrong. The Beacons have won 5 in a row over Southern Maine for the first time ever, but the 5 combined margins, 15 total points. Will we have another close one? Stick around to find out. Right now, we'll take a look at highlights from last year's close game, 75-74 UMass Boston here at the Clark.
In scoring is a freshman. Charles Mitchell threw a lot of contact for Davey there. Nearly stolen away, but Charles Mitchell gets there, goes up over. Rebound calls for Southern Maine. There's Southern Maine player who failed to touch the ball. Vince Young pulls up for 3. A lot of dribbling. Somehow able to find space. The fullback draws contact. He can steal away. It's Charlie Mitchell. That's the other end. Charles with the right hand lane. Vince Young, a 2-on-1 boy, the only player back. Vince Young goes up. Boyd all the way to the team. Well short work back. Good free throw shooting team. Vince Young the step back 3. And a ton of pressure here. And he looks to go all the way. Over. It's stripped away on top. Vince Young nearly goes away. Taking a couple of threes. That's the first thing you see. So he gives it off, and Brown's for 7. Charles Mitchell somehow finds it. Charles Mitchell wants another one. Goes hard downhill, can't get it to go.
Welcome back to the Clark Athletic Center. Those were the highlights from last year's home game for the Beacons, a 75-74 win. They went up to Southern Maine about 3 weeks later and earned a 97-94 overtime win. And Jason Harris said it, Jeff, the last 5 games, actually the last 6, because Southern Maine's win the game before that was extremely close as well, have all been really tight games decided by 5 points or less. The Beacons winning 5 of 6. Now, that might happen again tonight. It might not if the Beacons can avoid that run. But what do you tell your team at half? Because they're going to feel pretty good up by 19 points. But Jason Harris is probably right. There's going to be a run, or at least an attempted run from Southern Maine. And if Jacoby Thomas is healthy, he's probably going to score a lot more in the second half.
You know, I think you echo the exact same message that he echoed to you at halftime, and you say they're going to make a run. This is what conference basketball is, and you got to put that same effort forth again, maybe just to get out of here with a win. What I also say that I also agree with them on is it's not the turnovers that are impressive. Their half-court defense right now is as sound as it can possibly be. Defending and communicating on screens, defending individually. I think in today's day and age of basketball, we talk so much about team defense, and it is so important, playing together and communicating. But at the end of the day, can you guard your man? Can 5 guys guard their man? And to me, that's the most impressive thing they're doing defensively right now, especially on Jacoby Thomas, who's an individual star. He's really not getting in the lane. He's not able to be aggressive with his shot, and the ball screens are rendering fairly useless right now because they're doing such a good job communicating on him.
Yeah, he's been extremely frustrated, and we saw him a little bit banged up towards the end of the half. A player's averaging 24 points per game his last 2 games, over 30 points. So we'll see what the sophomore transfer can do. Let's take a look at the halftime stats. And honestly, Jeff, I took a quick look at them on my way down as we lose graphics, but we can talk through them. You look at the difference between the teams. The Beacons shooting 35%, 12 of 34. Southern Maine 32%, 8 of 25. The Beacons did hit 6 of 15 threes. Southern Maine 3 of 8. So there's a slight difference by 3%. Free throws 10 of 15 for the Beacons. Southern Maine 2 of 2. Rebounds, Beacons are plus 3. 5 assists for the Beacons, 6 for Southern Maine. The 12 turnovers for Southern Maine, 2 for the Beacons. That's the only stat where there's a glaring difference. You look up on the scoreboard, 19 points, you think, oh, one team's going to be shooting a lot better, doing all these things. It hasn't been that. The Beacons haven't shot all that well. They haven't operated all that well offensively, but they're making the right moves.
You cannot be on pace to have 20 less shot attempts in a game and have a chance to compete. And that's where Southern Maine's at right now, particularly when you're not the better three-point shooting team. If you're a team that relies on the three and you can outscore people by 25% per possession, you have a chance to do it. But when you're not the superior shooting team and you don't create extra possessions for yourself, and again, conference games are tough. That was one of the least tough first halves of basketball I've seen in conference, just based on the energy and the enthusiasm. One thing I say about men's college basketball all the time, you've heard me say it before, we do these games together. If you play really hard and you play together and you can do it for 40 minutes, you're going to be in these games, especially in conference. If I'm a Southern Maine fan or if I'm on that coaching staff, that's all I'm talking about right now is the energy has to come up and the other things will start to take care of themselves.
Taking a look at the team leaders, Charles Mitchell, 17 points, 6 of 13 from the field, 5 of 10 from distance. Jason Sinelli added 11 points and 4 rebounds. Malik Lorquet, 5 points and 6 boards. On the opposite side, Shimon Chanel has a team-high 9 points. The next highest scorer is Cody Hawes with 5. Jacoby Thomas has just 3 attempts, all from distance, 1 of 3 for 3 points and 3 turnovers. Not a lot of balance for Southern Maine. Not a lot of guys who have really gotten going.
No, and what I love about UMass, and you just read through some of the point totals too, is it's almost like they've adopted like the everybody eats mentality. I think Charlie Mitchell's a great example of that. You made the point at the beginning that he's much more the slashing combo guard, where Charles is the shooter. And a younger Charlie Mitchell, I've seen him attack and press almost to a fault, sometimes create where they're not there. I think if you could go ask Charlie Mitchell right now, hey, how'd you like that first half? I think he'd tell you great things about the first half. It's not about his 2 points. It's about him filling his role, moving the ball, and scoring when it presents itself.
Right now we'll take a look around Beaconville. UMass Boston's women's team went into the fourth quarter tied. A great fourth quarter, lots of hustle plays, 77 to 65 over Southern Maine. Second ever win over Southern Maine here at home. And the Beacons 6-0 for the second time in program history. A couple big games on Friday and Saturday here at the Clark. Women's hockey hosting New England College at 4 p.m. on Friday. Men's hockey hosting Suffolk, and then both teams will take on Johnson and Wales University. 2 conference games for each side. Beacons men's team up and down this season, right at 500. The women's team went 0-2 this past weekend at the Codfish Bowl. They certainly could get a nice little jolt if they can pick up 4 points in conference play. And now a look around the rest of the conference. And, Jeff, this is really interesting because we're so early, but EastCon losing by 15 to WestCon. UMass Dartmouth losing by 19 at home to Rhode Island College. And Castleton a lot closer to Keene State than I would expect. All 3 of those scores are surprising to me. This is probably the lone score that I would say that makes some sense.
Yeah, and those 3 teams on the left, in my experience, Econ, Rhode Island, and Keene State, those have been the powers in the conference. I know from my time playing and in my last, 8 years of watching now, those teams have an identity. I think that's one of the best things you can say about a college program is, do you have a clear identity? Is it sustainable? Rhode Island College to me has been the same team for 12 years now. They play pack line defense. They're aggressive. They want to play you in the 40s and 50s, and more often than not, they'll succeed at it. If you start beating those programs, you're in pretty good shape.
Rhode Island College picked 4th in the conference. UMass Dartmouth picked 3rd, but Rhode Island College did pick up a first-place vote. Let's take a quick look ahead for UMass Boston before we get to highlights of that first half. UMass Boston at 4-1. They travel to Keene State. That has been a tough game for them. Since Jason Harris took over, they've beaten Keene once. They haven't beaten EastCon, so that's something to watch this year. Then they go to Holy Cross on Tuesday night for their second D1 exhibition game of the year. They will take on the Crusaders on Tuesday night, and then they take on Tufts the next day. Jason Harris has put 2 back-to-backs this year on the Beacon schedule, and those are really tough. But also, those help you come tournament time. If you can get to that championship weekend, you go semifinals, finals. It's good to have that experience, especially early on in the year where there's less wear and tear on the legs.
Yeah, and this team can handle it. This is an athletic group. They're well conditioned. They're in shape. I wouldn't expect that to be an issue. The back-to-backs. What I really like about the schedule that to be honest with you, I didn't think I was going to like very much is the 2 Division I scrimmages and
exhibitions.
Exhibitions, yeah. And I can tell you just as a fan, I watched that. the UO game, and if I'm being totally candid, obviously there's a discrepancy between the groups, as there should be. It was not good to watch. They didn't execute very well. They didn't play with confidence. They didn't shoot it well. And when I saw that, I said, okay, maybe this is a little bit of a mistake. When you see how they're playing now, it makes you think, hey, they took everything away from that game that they could. I'm excited to see them play another one against Holy Cross.
Yeah, let's take a look right now at the highlights in the first half. And Jeff, the first time that UMass Lowell played the Beacons was the freshman year for the Mitchell twins. And the Beacons were actually, I think, within a point or two at halftime. Got blown out in the second half, but they feel like they could do a lot better. So you see the highlights, and a big part of it is the Beacons' defense and the three-point shooting of Charles Mitchell. He has 5 threes in the first half. Southern Maine has just 3 as a team, but also the Beacons getting a lot of steals, and Mitchell has been the guy today. The Beacons have had so many different guys. 5 games, I think they've had 3 or 4 different leading scorers, but Charles Mitchell, when he's shooting well, this Beacons team has a dynamic that can be a real game changer for this Beacons team, especially considering they're never going to be the larger side, especially in conference play.
There, as somebody who was not an offensive player, and you're always playing with other offensive players that have a much higher ceiling than you do, here's what I'll tell you. The least fun person to play with is a ball stopper. When the ball sticks, and you might get your 20 or 30, but it's because it is sticking in your hands and you're going to go play. The most fun people to play with are people who get it comfortably. And that's what I love what Charles is doing right now. I love what Dayson's doing right now. It seems like a different person does it every game. They might end up with 20, 25. And you watch the game, you didn't even know what happened because it is just within the flow of the game. That's just basketball maturity. I love the way they're playing right now offensively.
We've got 15 seconds to go before the start of the second half. Southern Maine's been out there for a while. The Beacons are still huddled up. Jason Harris, we both talked about this off air. Jason Harris is such a competitive in-game coach. He uses every possible second. For his first 4 years, the Beacons never did the traditional tunnel out for starting lineups because Jason Harris wanted to hit home his point to the last possible second. And I'm sure the big message here was, forget the fact that you're up 19. You need to be competitive or this Southern Maine team will be right back in a close game, just like all of you have seen before.
Yeah, he's as good of an in-game and an X's and O's basketball coach as I've ever been around. I've been really fortunate to come down and watch a lot of their practices just as a fan, just to watch their systems and how they practice and the way he runs it. And when they get into their sets and their systems, it is so impressive to watch, even just 5-0 in practice. You guys know exactly what they're supposed to be doing, what the timing is. If he needs to make an adjustment, he makes it on the fly, and it's not a big discussion. And he just does such a good job with these guys.
Shimon Chanel called for reaching out the elbow to clear out some space. Offensive foul on the Huskies on their first possession. Beacons go with the starting 5 here. Charles and Charlie Mitchell, Dason Sinelli. Charles dribbles it off his foot. Malik Lorquet and Michael Boyd. 19-point Beacons lead. Southern Maine had a very slow start to the first half. Found themselves down 20-4. Shimon Chanel, the leading scorer for Southern Maine the first half with 9. Jacoby Thomas, the leading scorer on Southern Maine, second leading scorer in the conference, had just 3 points. See if Thomas, who's being guarded by Michael Boyd right now, gets some more looks. Just 3 shots in the first half. 1 of 3 from distance. 8 on the shot clock. It's Chanel over for DJ Anderson. Looks to drive, meets Lorquet in the air, and finishes over the big.
That's a really tough finish right there. That's a good way to get started for USM.
Anderson, out of Houston, Texas, attended Davis High School. Did not play last year due to an injury. Charlie Mitchell around a couple screens, looks to go downhill over Anderson, just a bit too strong. And Charlie Mitchell battles 3 Southern Maine Huskies and comes away with a rebound. I think that's just one of those plays that kind of defies who Charlie Mitchell is. Guy who never gives up. Charles Mitchell down low for Lorquet, who has positioning and finishes with the left hand.
Now, we just saw the same play on both ends of the court. We saw Jacoby Thomas come off a ball screen, get switched, and hold the basketball. If somebody switches, especially at his height, you got to be able to look over the top. You see the smaller Charles Mitchell make a perfect play. Double team me off the screen, I make the quick pass underneath on a slip, wide open layup.
Thomas up top for Wood. That is not an area he's comfortable operating in. Yeah, handoff for Chanel into the corner. And the 3 is up and a little bit too strong that time from what looked like Derek Haney as Roberts sits with those 4 first-half fouls. Sinelli, the acrobatic finish, and it might have gone in, but Lorquet is going to be called for the offensive goaltend. Just couldn't quite wait. Was hoping it would bounce off the rim and he could get a little tip. like an eager puppy, maybe, just waiting for the ball, and Malik couldn't quite hold on long enough.
Sometimes you get up there in the air, it's hard to pull your hands away.
I've never been that close to getting up there.
Neither have I.
I'm Seth Orensky, joined by former UMass Boston men's basketball player and current athletic performance coach Jeff Epps on the air for both ends of today's doubleheader. As Wood is too strong, long rebound, and it's Charles Mitchell who gets there first, and then we'll draw the contact on Thomas, who rolls his eyes. But, I mean, again, that's just not getting out of the way in time. Charles Mitchell has his right, and again, Southern Maine just not moving enough in this contest.
And if you watch USM offensively right now, the Beacons defensively are obviously going to switch every ball screen on to Thomas. Every ball screen, really every screen everywhere is going to get switched. Now, every time you have 2-on-1, you're going to have somebody open. I'd like to see them be a little bit more creative as far as slipping, backdooring, using their other players off of him, because he's doing his job. When you draw two like that, you're doing your job. It's almost like Klay Thompson with the Golden State Warriors. Just your presence is enough.
Lorquet finds Charles Mitchell in a little bit of a role reversal with the big playing behind the three-point line. Charles up to 19 points in the contest, and one of the things I love watching about Malik Lorquet is he is a big who's pretty good at passing. Nice little element as Chanel goes hard to the rim and able to get the roll. 19-point lead, that's what it was at halftime. And the same 3.5 minutes into half number 2 as Charlie Mitchell works, gets around Chanel, stripped to the ball. And I've really liked what I've seen out of Shimon Chanel, the junior out of Holland, Michigan.
Now, what will drive you crazy there, watching from a coach's eye, 3 USM Huskies on the weak side all took half steps towards the ball. That tells you everything you need to know defensively right there. You either want to get to the basket line or you don't. And right now, they're just not making those plays. Those are just fundamental, shell drills. You do them first day of practice, October 15th. You got to be on the basket line. You got to be willing to help.
Charles Mitchell blocked by Jacoby Thomas on the other end. Big mismatch. Cameron Wood against Charlie Mitchell, and Wood can't get the basket to go. He will go to the line for 2 free throws.
More and more college teams, I would say more than half of these teams now, and I don't know their defensive schemes, but more teams are going to this pack line defense where not only are you on the basket line, you're actually over the basket line, daring teams to make a pass, daring them to make cross-court passes and shoot it. USM right now is not even a third of the way, to the basket line, and if that's how you're going to play, you better be willing to turn and make a sprint to get there. And right now, you just see UMass just getting free driving lanes.
Wood hit both free throws, came into the game hitting 10 of 15. Very talented high school player, 3-time All-Conference at Winthrop High School, former Mr. Maine basketball semifinals and a McDonald's All-Star. Lorquet goes to work on Wood, who loses footing, and an easy finish for Malik Lorquet. And a big reaction from the bench. Anytime you can dribble and send a guy to his backside, that's going to be pretty exciting for your teammates. Wood up top. The impressive thing to me from Wood's high school resume, played basketball, soccer, tennis, and track and field.
Wow.
That's pretty impressive from a guy who's 6'7" and listed at actually 6'8", 225.
Had to be a thrower on the track team.
Yeah, but what did he play in soccer? Was he a goalie?
Had to be, right? Yeah.
Still impressive. And tennis, you have to have some agility. And he's shown good footwork. Lorquet works on him. Lorquet gets around him, can't finish the second time. The third time, the tip goes.
This is underrated. It just athletic quality in general. Do you see how fast off his feet he is, second and third jump? It's one thing to be the highest one or the first one up there, but when you're the first one up there the second time, that's just quick off your feet.
Charlie Mitchell draws the foul as he met DJ Anderson at half court and flew the other way. We've got a media timeout, our first of the second half. The Beacons win the first 5 minutes by 2. They lead 48-27 with 14:55 to play. UMass Boston cheerleaders coming out during the timeout. UMass Boston leads 48 to 27 with 14:55 to go. And Jeff, we've talked about it where Southern Maine hasn't necessarily been showing the effort. They're going to send their starters out there for the most part, including Jay Roberts, who's out there with 4 fouls, alongside Anderson, Haney, Chanel, and Thomas. So they're going to keep 4 of their starters out there, even Roberts with the 4 fouls. At what point, if this game stays a 20-point game, does either team think about playing some of their bench players, especially UMass Boston? They need pieces 7 and 8 right now. Well, pieces maybe 8 and 9, because I think Rodriguez and Monroe have been showing something the last couple of games. As Charles Mitchell takes a 3 a little bit short, long rebound, and Thomas comes back and tips it over to a teammate.
I think in conference, I think you're going to let these guys play. You're going to make sure you have the game at hand, and you'll see these guys, I would think at least midway through the fourth, provided it stays like this. But if I'm USM as they make a shot, this is not an unwinnable game. You put together a 5-minute burst of good basketball, you get yourself to single digits, and you're right there. You just got to play with a lot more energy.
Jacoby Thomas hits his second basket of the game, both from distance. He's got 6, averages an even 24 a game, coming off a 38-point performance on Sunday where he hit just 2 threes.
Now they're in a zone right now. It's the first time they've shown a zone.
Charlie Mitchell goes baseline. The Beacons make the extra pass. Sinelli goes back out to the wing, and Charles Mitchell will toss up a 3, no good. Lorquet grabs the rebound over his own teammate, and the Beacons get a new 20.
And I'm sorry, that's what happens with zone defense. One of the deficiencies there is it's hard to rebound out of that 2-3. You get a defensive stop, but you're out of rebounding position. You end up with a lot of second chances.
Well, and Roberts is trying to defend Lorquet, forces the miss there, as Charlie Mitchell goes right into the face of Haney, and that's an easy call for the referees. Second on the Beacons, third on Charlie Mitchell. But the issue is you're putting a guy with 4 fouls against Roberts against Lorquet. Even if he goes up hard, he's got to worry about a loose ball foul.
Well, and I'm sure that's why they're in the zone. I have no doubt about that, is they're going to try to hide him on defense and play zone for a little bit. What I typically say about zone is if you have to resort to it and it's not in your DNA, it might trick you or throw you off for a couple possessions. It's not going to take long to figure it out. You end up right back in the same boat. You still have to have a presence. We've seen it one possession now. I didn't see any hands up from Southern Maine.
Lorquet with the steal of Thomas goes hard. It's stripped, and they're going to say off of Thomas. It's a nice play by Thomas to recover after the Beacon center got the steal. And if he'd had a little bit more room, I'm pretty sure Malik would have tried to go up for a big dunk. Instead, 27 on the shot clock, 13-19 to go in regulation, and off the inbounds, the Beacons tried to get Lorquet an easy look. Roberts, this is a difficult situation as Southern Maine's back in a man-to-man. Rodriguez attempts a 3. Looks like he was undercut there by Chanel, but no call. And the Huskies have a chance to get it a little bit closer. Trailed by 19 at half, down to an 18-point deficit is Thomas is looking to get the ball in the post against the smaller Charlie Mitchell. Will take the 6-foot jumper, no good. And Sinelli has another rebound. Beacons team has been phenomenal in the first half all season long. Came in plus 69. They're now plus 88 in 6 first halves as Rodriguez couldn't quite make the catch. But they're minus 7 in the second half. Part of that is they've been playing some laughers, but also teams have made some adjustments as Boyd's off the mark and Thomas skies for the rebound.
Yeah, that's one of the first kind of stare-down jump shots we've seen in this game, but even that I don't hate. Everybody touched it. It went corner to corner. It's just a more rhythm shot when you get it like that.
Roberts tries to drive by Lorquet, but takes too many steps beforehand. Keenan Hendricks replaces Shimon Chanel. 12:19 to go. And Jeff, while I don't think the Beacons are playing particularly well right now, I think they'll be okay going into the second media timeout up in that 18 to 20 range. Your big focus, if you're the team that's winning big, is just to keep that score close to where it was, whereas Southern Maine needs to start chipping away shortly with just 12 minutes left. Lorquet goes up top for Charlie Mitchell with 8. Beacons have worked a lot of shot clock the last couple possessions, and that one's punched away by Hendricks out of bounds. Beacons will get a media timeout and some time to stew over this possession as they lead 48-30. 11:53 to go. We've hit our second media timeout of the second half.
College has given me the flexibility to pursue my passions and my interests, and I've recreated my identity for myself aside from just being an athlete.
My greatest personal discovery has been that I am capable of doing things that I didn't know I was capable of doing.
To be able to study what I wanted to and continue to play the sport I love, all of those things came together very nicely in one package in Division III.
Division III allows you to give yourself to other things.
Having that free time allows me to pursue the things that I want to pursue.
Division III athletics affords students the opportunity to, engage in the other interests in their campus and in their lives outside of that sport.
It allows you to just be able to do everything you want to do. I wouldn't change it for the world.
Back to live action. 5 seconds on the shot clock for the Beacons. 11:53 to go. They get it into Sinelli, who will take the pull-up three. Front rim, no good. And UMass Boston's gone a little bit cold offensively the last couple possessions. Thomas hard to the rack, blocked by Lorquet. Lorquet came from behind, but it's kept alive by Roberts. Dishes it across for Hendricks, and Southern Maine has 20 left on the shot clock. And that's one of those hustle plays that Southern Maine wins a 50-50 battle. Roberts takes the three, too strong. Sinelli taps it almost into his own basket, and the Beacons get the board. Charles Mitchell, the Beacons' leading scorer thus far and leading scorer on the season, is ready to check back in. Beacons not moving as much here on the offensive end right now and taking the shot clock down late. It almost feels like we're in the final 4 minutes rather than the final 12. Down to 6. Charlie Mitchell works his way in, but he's partially blocked off the mark, and now it's Jacoby Thomas going into Lorquet. Pull-up three is up off the mark. Roberts the rebound. Dishes it out top for Anderson, and now Haney will try his hand. He's off the mark. And if Southern Maine was shooting the ball better, this could be a game right now.
Yeah, they're definitely starting to get better looks. They're pressing so much for points right now. It doesn't seem like it's about the right shot. It seems like it's about the first shot. And again, we just talked about it at the offensive end for UMass. Is sometimes you can tell when shots come out of rhythm and when they don't. And when you're not getting rhythm shots, it's just hard to hit.
Michael Boyd, awkward-looking three. His body was still twisting, and he was wide open. It wasn't a terrible shot, but he just didn't get his feet set. Also, Jeff, Jamie Morrison, the Beacons' second-in-command, former MCLA coach, was screaming at the team, move. It's not like this is a plan from the Beacons all of a sudden. Let's kill the shot clock. Let's get it down to the final 10. Let's kill some clock right now. This is just stagnant offense right now, and we saw it against Framingham State a little bit in the first game of the Paul Titus tournament. Didn't hurt them because they were up big. We saw it against WPI, and it clearly hurt them. The Beacons just are not keeping the energy up and making the right decisions on offense in the second half these last 3 games.
Yeah, and this is really common in games like this, too. And this game, again, is not out of hand by any stretch, but sometimes you get a big lead, and my favorite expression is I like to say play with pace. And pace sometimes doesn't mean 94 feet end to end. What it means is that everything within your offense, you do it with intent and with discipline. Are you cutting hard? Are you moving with intent? Right now, we've kind of lost that offensively a little bit.
DJ Anderson hits the three. Southern Maine as close as they've been here in the second half, down by 15, as Monroe and Charles Mitchell check back in. Charles Mitchell dribbles it off his foot for a turnover, a chance to cut it even further. Anderson off the mark. Monroe, though, knocks down Roberts, and Roberts seems to be in a little bit of pain there as the Beacons whistled for their third foul of the half. First on Mark Monroe. And this has been a really bad 5-minute stint for the Beacons. Not only have they been outscored, but I don't remember the last time the Beacons got a good look on offense.
Yeah, it's hard. Once that switches off, it's hard to get it back on. It's not as easy as just, hey, let's come up and run it with more pace.
After some discussion between the referees, foul was on the floor. So it'll be a new 30 for Southern Maine with under 10 to go. The deficit is just 15. The Beacons have led by over 20 in this game as the throw-in finds Thomas, who nearly lost it. Thomas, the near side for Hawes. For Roberts, who's been playing with 4 fouls for a while. Wide open, Thomas up top, and he airballs it. Good job by Charlie Mitchell to just hold off Hawes from getting the rebound, but that is a terrible thing if you're UMass Boston. You lead the top scorer for Southern Maine open, and then terrible thing for Southern Maine to see your top scorer airball a three.
Yeah, they haven't been as sharp, and if you look at Coach Harris right now, too, I think he's letting them play through this a little bit, letting the guys kind of figure it out. It's pretty obvious in a rut right now on both ends.
Sinelli goes hard to the rim. There's a finish, and the Beacons get their first points in a while.
And that is exactly what you want to do when you're in a lull offensively, too, is just get to the rim. Get your fingertips to the rim. Get an easy one.
50-33 with 9 minutes to go in the half. The Beacons led by 19 at halftime as Roberts takes a step back, 3 too strong. Southern Maine can't buy a three-pointer. They've hit 1 or 2 in the half, but they've probably missed a dozen, and we've got a blocking foul on Charlie Mitchell, who now is in foul trouble. He joins Roberts as the 2 players with 4 fouls. And Jason Harris isn't going to immediately pull him.
And you can see how contagious it is, right? So you get a basket, you get a great attack of the basket. They come down, they have by far their best defensive possession over the last 5 minutes. Just the way everybody's demeanor, the way they present their hands, communicate, it just takes one to get that back.
Sinelli gets his hands on the inbound, but it's poked out by Anderson off of Sinelli. And realistically, the issue, we talked about foul trouble mostly focused on Malik Lorquet, but right now, Charlie Mitchell has the 4 fouls, and the Beacons don't have a guard who can replace him, so they're going to go big right now. Lorquet's going to replace Charlie Mitchell, and Lorquet's going to play the 4, something we've seen him do sparingly this year, working together with Mark Monroe. Down to 3 on the shot clock. Anderson has to get it up with 1. He ran into Sinelli, airballs it, and it'll be a shot clock violation. The Beacons are pleading for the offensive foul first. Sinelli's a guy who takes a lot of incidental contact because he's such a in-tight, on-ball defender. And I feel like every game, Dason takes a couple elbows or sprains an ankle, just plays through it.
Yeah, he takes a lot of pride on that end, and he does. He's involved in a lot of contact, too. But again, that's who he is, and that's his role and how he contributes to this group.
Jay Roberts just came off, and he was having some words with the team's coaching staff, very frustrated behind the bench as his team trails by 17 here, trying to avoid an 0-2 start to conference. Boyd looking for Lorquet as Southern Maine player Hawes lost his footing. Monroe spins hard to the basket, too strong, but he draws the foul on Nagel. We've seen a couple nice offensive moves from Mark Monroe, operating a little bit further away from the basket than we're used to seeing.
And they're both bigs are pretty capable of being able to stretch away from the basket, not from a shooting standpoint, but I've played with bigs before where you don't even want the ball in their hands around the perimeter. Both these guys are pretty comfortable handling, passing, making plays. It gives you a lot of versatility in the offensive end where you can go to a lineup like this at the 4-5 with more size.
Monroe hits the first, his first made free throw of the season, now 1 of 4. Not a great free throw shooter, 32% last year, but he's up to 40% this year now, 2 of 5. And we'll see Southern Maine get a little bit bigger. First time today that we have seen Bailey Van Hoot, the senior forward out of Greensboro, Australia. She is close to Melbourne, down in the southeast of Australia. He's got an interesting story. Played his high school basketball in Las Vegas before playing at Southern Maine. That is a very interesting move. You go from Southern Australia to Las Vegas, a pair of very warm places, all the way up to Gorham, Maine, and Van Hoot nearly scores on his first touch of the game. So it's 6'5", 205. 19-point Beacons lead, 7:35 to go. The Beacons looking to move to 5-1 on the season and 1-0 in conference play. Monroe gets the touch, working on Nagel, gets around him and finishes. A beautiful move from Mark Monroe.
And you can just see his skills just developing. That's such a mature, calm play. That is not an easy play. You made it look very easy, but so many times bigs hit the ball in their hands down low and they're rushing. He doesn't look like he's rushing at all.
Hendricks misses from the corner, and Lorquet gobbles up another rebound. He has been huge on the boards today. Charles Mitchell in transition, misses but draws the contact. Man, when Charles Mitchell gets going downhill, I don't really know how you stop it.
Yeah, that's how you want them playing. I mean, their primary offense should always be transition offense. Between the 4, again, that kind of core 4 they have, and Malik trailing the play, that's where your primary offense should be.
Got a media timeout, our second to last one of the game. The Beacons have stretched their lead back to 21 after Southern Maine had cut it to 15. We'll take a look at a couple of highlights right now as UMass Boston, after a long dry spell, has picked up their play. And in large part, it's been the combination of Sinelli and Monroe who have kind of dug the Beacons out of the hole. First, we see the 3 from DJ Anderson from the corner, one of the rare made threes for Southern Maine. This is Sinelli going hard to the hoop. That broke a long dry spell for the Beacons. And since that point, the Beacons have really picked up on their play. This is the most recent great move. And Nagel's a good player, don't get me wrong, but it just seems like Mark Monroe, a little bit fleeter of foot, a little bit more decisive in making his moves.
And I'm a little surprised that there hasn't been more activity and awareness really of the post. The ball gets down there, and you see there's so much space. He's almost got a 5 or 6 foot perimeter around him. Nobody around him. Most basketball players, most college players, you give them that much space to work one-on-one, you're going to score more often than not.
Charles Mitchell to the line for 2 free throws this year, shooting 7 of 14 to begin the season, and 2 strong on the first. Just a 56.6% free throw shooter, and that's a tough one because this team has struggled, and he's a guy who typically gets to the line. He's a great shooter. I mean, 3-point line, gets to the layups. Like he's a very productive shooter. What is it about the free throw line that could cause someone who's used to shooting jump shots, used to shooting shots in rhythm, some problems like Charles has?
I think that's exactly it. I do think this is a small sample size this year, number one. He's a much better free throw shooter than that. And for some guys, it is exactly that. It's just rhythm. You know, you see the shots that he makes so confidently. They're all in his hands and out of his hands. Some guys, the free throw line is just not as rhythmic for them, and they don't shoot as high a percentage.
Beacons are tied for their largest lead of the game at 22. Monroe goes baseline. He wants to eat, throws it up a little bit short this time, and Nagel picks up the rebound. 6:30 to go in the contest. UMass Boston has led comfortably ever since probably the first 6 minutes. Slow start for both sides, and the Beacons went on a big run, 17-2, as Monroe is called for the reach in there on the post entry.
You know, just to add to the free throw conversation, too, is that the biggest thing is that as the year goes on, regardless of percentage, if you're one of the team's best shooters, you got to want to be at the free throw line. As long as you're willing to go there and it's not affecting your attacks to the basket the way you play offensively, when you start becoming a guy that, hey, I don't want to be there, that's where it becomes problematic.
Wood comes back in for Nagel for Southern Maine, and Wood immediately finds Shimon Chanel. On the opposite side, Beacons bring on Mariana Rodriguez for Jason Sinelli. So right now, Charlie Mitchell out of the game with 4 fouls. He's also getting his left ankle taped. Mike Boyd for Monroe, and now Monroe's going to try to find Malik Lorquet. Both Beacons bigs are good playing that high-low game with the opposite bigs. Charles Mitchell's crossover gets into the rim. Instead, he looks for Monroe, and it's stripped away. 20-point Beacons lead as Hendricks dishes it out for Hawes for 3 off the mark, and Malik Lorquet has another rebound. And most of these rebounds have been uncontested, not to take anything away from Malik.
Well, their positioning is good, too. We talked about it a little bit in the girls' game about how the positioning starts early. You know, rebounding sometimes looks like luck, like, oh, we're just in the right spot. But it's learning positioning and getting there early.
Boyd for Monroe dishes it out for Lorquet, and Lorquet's blocked. Beacon still fighting for it, and it's picked up by Chanel. 5:15 to go. Chanel dribbles past a couple players, throws it all the way across for Hawes from the near wing, and that was a very nice pass and a good 3 from Hawes to get back within 17.
Chanel's a much better offensive player than the stats coming into this game had said. The first couple shots he had made to start the game, it said, okay, maybe those are just an anomaly, but he's really been good in all phases. He's been good on the perimeter. He gets into the paint. He's making plays for others.
Yeah, came in averaging 5 points, just under 2 rebounds, 2 assists per game, and 23 minutes per game as Boyd is off. Mariana Rodriguez fights to keep it alive. Charles Mitchell wants that 6-3, and he knocks it down. And the Beacons have pushed the lead back to 20 with 4:37 to go. And that's got to feel good for Charles, who did go through a little bit of a quiet spell here in the second half. But he's got 6 threes in the game. This is a guy who was terrific as a freshman. I think we didn't see the voting, but it really came down to who do you nominate, because you're only allowed to put one guy up. Do you nominate Michael Boyd or you nominate Charles Mitchell? Either one could have won the LAC Rookie of the Year. But as a sophomore last year, he slumped a little bit. Shot just 32%, 26% from 3, averaged 10 points a game. Coming into this one, 18 points a game, 47% from the field, 38% from 3. It's a huge difference, 12% from the three-point line.
Yeah, and I just think sometimes as you go through a college career, in your 4 years, it's so easy to assume that it's going to be this linear and upward progression. You learn the game, you get a little older, you work out more, and you're going to get better. Sometimes it's not the individual, it's what's around you. What's the system like around you? How do you fit in with the pieces around you? And I just think this is as connected of a team as I've seen in blue and white at home.
Well, and we talked about it a little bit with Malik Lorquet benefiting maybe a little bit from not having Javaris Hill to fight for minutes. Alex Sanchez not being in this backcourt also helps Charles Mitchell, because if he does struggle a little bit, you don't have to worry about, am I going to see as many minutes today, as Tommy Burris checks in, for the high school football player and basketball player who gets beat that time by Peter Brennan.
But again, this is exactly what I expected in these last 4 minutes. It's not wholesale changes deep into your bench. This is, not out of the realm of being competitive, but it's an opportunity to get a guy that you think can help you and get him some time and get him some touches and start to build his confidence. He can really shoot it.
Charles Mitchell too strong, but he fights to get the long rebound off the glass. No good, and Monroe can't keep it alive. Burris, the freshman out of Dalton, Mass, Wacona Regional High School product, all Berkshire County, and led his basketball team to a second-place finish in Western Mass. Just his 4th appearance of the year. Still looking for those first career points, but from everything I've heard, he's not only a guy who can shoot it well, but who can shoot high volume if he can get that confidence going. So we'll see what he can do in the final 3:51. Final media timeout of the day. We'll take a commercial. The Beacons leading 58-40, potentially their most comfortable win in a while over Southern Maine.
What separates UMass Boston from other schools is the fact that a large percentage of students commute. For me, it takes 2 hours each day to go to and from school, but every second has been worth it because the students that come here are serious about learning, they value their education, and understand where it'll take them in the future. This is what UMass Boston means to me.
Out of the timeout, UMass Boston will go with Monroe, Rodriguez, Boyd, Burris, and Charles Mitchell. So they keep 2 starters in and put in their 3 most reliable bench players. On the opposite side, Wood, Chanel, Van Hoot, alongside Peter Drennan. And in for the first time is Matt Sherburne. As the shot goes long, Sherburne fights for the rebound, but it's picked up by Charles Mitchell. Sherburne, freshman out of Wells, Maine, 5'11", 165, making his 5th appearance, has seen 9 minutes this season.
And I can tell you, too, these times of the games, as we see Yancey St. Germain get up to the scorer's table here, what you do not want to do as a guy who's getting your first minutes is come in and try to come outside of the system. It doesn't matter what the score is if the game's out of hand. You come in, you execute the system, because believe it or not, this is where you build trust. If, barring injuries or foul trouble, or you're going to get an opportunity, everybody's going to get called upon. You got to show that you can go into the game and be trusted to do what the team asks you to do. That happens during these times.
Nice job by Drennan to find a wide-open Wood. Charles Mitchell just hit his 7th 3 of the game, up to a season-high 26. Beacons lead by 19, and both teams have 2 more guys heading to the scorer's table. Make it 3 now for the Beacons as they will officially empty the bench, leading by 19 with under 3 minutes to go. Boyd over for Rodriguez, coming off a season-high 9 points. Don't believe he's scored yet today. Boyd goes downhill around Wood, and he'll draw the contact. Huge dunk from Monroe won't count, but we'll see 2 free throws from Boyd, and that's likely his final action. This wasn't a big game for Michael Boyd. I don't think it'll show up in the stat sheet, but just his confidence and his defense today were big. Jacoby Thomas, easily a season low for points, and he just never got going, and he was one of the guys who worked hard to slow down Thomas.
And I would say all of the Beacons' biggest offensive weapons, they're starting to all become players that not only know how to suit themselves, but know how to play within the system and make each other better. Sometimes making each other better means you're only going to score 5 points or 7 points. And you just got to be comfortable with, hey, I played the game that we needed tonight. I think Mike is more than comfortable in that role, knowing he doesn't have to score 20 to 25 like he's had to in the past for this team to be successful.
Boyd hits both, up to 6 points on the day. Took just 7 field goals, 1 of 7. For UMass Boston, they bring on Josiah Lassie, freshman out of North Carolina. Yancey St. Germain, junior out of Georgia, and Mike Maher, junior out of Massachusetts. Southern Maine is going to bring on player Greg Medore, who's played in just 3 games this year. Medore with it right now. Tries to go down low for Chanel, and it's out of bounds. Medore out of Guilford, New Hampshire.
And as an alum, too, just before the game's over, I'd be remiss if I didn't say this, too, where I'm really proud of the veteran group of this team. In particular, Mike Boyd and Dason Sinelli. And the reason why is that just being a basketball player and having, come through various programs over the years, it's not always in the DNA to not just be in the basketball gym, but to be in the gym. And to be doing the extra things to take care of your body. Those two have demanded it from day one. That's something they come to me with, and they say, hey, coach, this is what we want to be a part of. We want you to do this for us. And I've seen them hold each other accountable more than I've ever seen a group do that here. And it makes me so happy that they're having this level of success to start the season, because sometimes for young people, you just want them to see that A can lead to B when you do it the right way.
Beacons get 3 attempts in low. All 3 guys looking for their first points as Winston Rodriguez is making his collegiate debut, and the entire bench is up hoping that he does something right here. They were also up when Tommy Burris took a 3. Down to 6 seconds. Josiah Lassie spins to the hoop, and the Beacons are louder right now than they've been all season long, and this shows, talk about on the women's side, this men's team is so focused on supporting each other. A lot of these bench guys, they're there as a scout team in practice, but they won't necessarily see time in the game. When they get out there, the starters are even more excited than if they did something big.
It's so funny. I was just going to say a minute ago, too. Shout out the bench. When you come down to the gym and you watch this team practice, their practices are so competitive, and I would almost use the word edgy. Their practices are almost edgy. They're in each other every day, but that's what this builds. It doesn't build animosity. It builds togetherness. You're doing it together, and you can see it coming out right now.
Marr in for Josiah Lassie, who's fouled. And Lassie, who is probably guy number 9 right now for UMass Boston, kind of that extra guard if they need him. The freshman out of Cherokee, North Carolina, making his 3rd appearance, but played in 13 combined minutes between Eastern Mass and Framingham State, has a chance for his first collegiate points. 1-and-1 opportunity, and he's off the mark. So this bench group still looking everybody but Yancey St. Germain has never scored in a collegiate contest. Minutes ago, Beacons will get at least one more offensive possession as Chanel's still out there. He's led the team today for the Huskies. 3-point attempt well off the mark that time from Abir Mignel. And it's St. Germain, the elder statesman of the group. Playing about 5 games as a sophomore. It's tapped out, and he'll stay with the Beacons for 41 seconds. And these 41 seconds in a blowout are still exciting because of the reaction of the bench right now and a lot of the crowd who are familiar with this bench group. Winston Rodriguez, if he scores, they will go crazy. Burris hits the front of the rim, bounces out. St. Germain grabs it. He goes up, scores, and the bench is extremely excited. It's fun moments like this where the game is well out of reach, but you can just tell the love for each other as Southern Maine nearly turns it over again. Drennan goes hard, and he loses it, and that should do it for the game. I'm sure Jason Harris will make they're going to keep it with the Huskies because I don't think the Beacons would take another shot when they get it.
And for a young player, too, and this is going to sound overstated a little bit, but you never know which bucket is going to be the bucket. I almost say like the eye-opening bucket where you say, okay, hey, I get it now, or I've relaxed now, or I've learned how to play the college game. It only takes a couple. These minutes are important.
Beacons get the steal, but Mike Marr, very calm, recognizing we're not going to disrespect our opponents. Winston Rodriguez down low. He scores his first collegiate basket. Typically you don't. Jason Harris is having words with Yancey St. Germain about, hey, coach, I know you didn't want me to do it, but he was wide open, and Rodriguez will never forget that moment as the freshman out of Watertown scores his first collegiate points, and the Beacons end the game with a game-high 25-point advantage, 67-42, and it all started with that big run early. UMass Boston never let Southern Maine closer than 15 here in the second half.
When you talked about it right from the open, you talked about the first half discrepancy between them and their opponents, and just having juniors and seniors and getting to a veteran group. And sometimes you win games, not in the last 5 minutes, but you win them in the first 5. This game reminded me a lot of the Framingham State game. They jumped all over them, and they played hard defensively throughout. And without playing 40 terrific minutes, this game was really never in doubt.
We will take a commercial break, then bring you an interview with Jason Harris. He won't be fully happy, but I'm sure he's happy that Jacoby Thomas didn't go off and this game didn't get tighter. And then we'll bring you the highlights and the final stats from this one as the Beacons earn the sweep of Southern Maine. It's not something they've been able to say very often. UMass Boston earns their 6th straight win over the Southern Maine Huskies.
UMass is very public service focused, and it piqued my interest, and I started doing more research on it. I'm very focused on what can I do to make the world around me a better place. My name is Lydia Grasso. I'm a junior at UMass Boston studying sociology and minoring in human rights. Because I won the Chancellor's Scholarship at UMass, it allowed me to go to Cambodia. I was working at the Sihanouk Hospital Center of Hope. I was in the place of something horrible that had happened. I could either go home and kind of forget about that experience and kind of block it out, or I could do something so that things like that never happened again. UMass provides me with opportunities that I wouldn't get anywhere else and gives me a global perspective in a public setting. I definitely transformed at UMass.
Psychology is about understanding the individual and understanding the mind. The main reason why I want to combine psychology and business degree
just kept playing hard. We were a little flat. We had a couple stagnant minutes. You know, credit to our kids. You know, they played hard, and they only gave Thomas one open look after that. And you know, our kids just played hard, man. They're playing really hard. They're playing well together, and they're cheering for each other. And you know, I'm just having fun coaching these guys this year.
Two of your seniors kind of got you out of that little rut where you didn't score for a while. Your defense kind of sagged as well. Dason Sinelli got the basket. Then Mark Monroe provided some really fun minutes in the second half. How big, I know you have so many leaders on this group with your upperclassmen, but how big were those two in today's game to kind of get you out of a funk?
You know, for the most part, those two kids are, you know, composed. I think Mark Monroe did an unbelievable job in the offseason of, you know, getting himself into shape so that Mark, and you saw him get up there and get that putback dunk. Last year, I don't think I ever would have saw that happen. You know, I think both those guys are they're older kids, you know, especially Dason. He's seen a lot of games. You know, Dason's been here since almost day one with me, and, you know, he's done a good job settling these other guys. I thought Mike Boyd actually played really well for going 1 for 7. You know, he kind of got those guys those balls in that spot, you know, to kind of let us be a little bit more efficient when we got wild.
You go from a team that was picked to finish 8th in the conference to a Keene State team that's always there that final weekend. What's the big focus going in against the Keene State team on the road on Saturday? You know it's going to be loud. You know they're going to be energetic, and they're going to be looking for a big win of their own.
That's who we play next? I had no idea. You know, we just get so focused on these league games. You know, like, again, the margin for error, we talked about it before the game, was like 3 points against these guys the last 6. I've already worked it out with Keene. I mean, it's a lot. I mean, that point differential is a lot. We can't get back all of those on Saturday. You know, those are what they are. But, you know, hey, like you said, the road to the Little East Championship's gone through Willimantic or Keene. You know, so it'll be an interesting test for us. I'm looking forward to it. We'll watch some film and get back to work tomorrow.
Coach, thanks so much for your time. Good luck the next couple of games. The Beacons will go on the road. We'll take a look at the second half highlights right now. And welcome back. Those are the highlights from the second half. Seth Orensky joined by Jeff Ebbs. And Jeff, I feel like you could have been down there with me because you pretty much said the exact same things that we heard from Jason Harris. UMass Boston, talk about leadership. Michael Boyd was a guy you called out, and same thing. And my favorite part of that interview was the fact that he might be lying, but he had no idea that they're playing Keene State next, because that's always a big game on the schedule. How do you compete against one of those top two? This is a team that lost Ty Nichols, one of the top players in Division III the last couple of years, still picked above the Beacons. James Ananozi, a very big mound of extreme strength down low in the post, is going to be tough for UMass Boston, but the Beacons can be competitive in that game, if not come away with the victory. That's going to go a long way to showing that this Beacons team is legit.
Right, and legit and mature too. And I think that's the thing I'm personally most happy about, as kind of an extension of their coaching staff too, is that when you get success in a group that hasn't had overwhelming success, how do you deal with it when you start getting it? And my favorite thing is that every time they experience more success, they come in the next day, they work harder, and they're a little more focused. That tells me this is a group that's hungry for more than some regular season wins and some recognition for being a good group. I think they're looking to do a little more than that.
Charlie and Charles Mitchell played at New Mission High School, one of the top high schools in the city of Boston, won 2 city titles and 2 state titles. And when they came to UMass Boston, they were very frank. They said that UMass Boston, as they wanted to win the Little East Conference, they wanted to win titles here, wanted to bring titles to Beaconville. So very interesting. I mean, not very interesting, but very important for them that they're not just winning games in the regular season. They want to have more postseason success. Won a game as a freshman and sophomore, as a freshman, lost last year as a sophomore. They haven't been to a championship game yet in the Little East Conference tournament.
And it's really important for the program, too. I can't undersell that. Again, as somebody that played here, as I remember when I was here, I was I saw a lot of guys come through here that we were almost part of the transfer portal, if you will. We were getting guys from community schools and transferring for their last year or 2 years, and and sometimes we would pluck guys from other schools, and we're starting to become really, obviously, program-wide, certain programs for years, but particularly the men's basketball team is starting to become option A. And I think in some respects that did start with Charlie and Charles Mitchell and how vocal they were about saying, hey, we're from here, we love it here, and we want to win championships here, and that means a lot to us.
Right now, you take a look at the final stats, the Beacons didn't shoot well. And granted, it was a 67-42 game, so you don't expect a team with 67 points to have shot all that well. But extremely close in a lot of the major stat categories. But then you look at the total shot attempts, the Beacons with 16 more shot attempts. They also attempted 22 free throws to 4 for Southern Maine, and a 20-5 edge in points off turnovers, and an 18-3 edge in second chance points. A lot of hustle stats the Beacons won today.
Yeah, I will say this too. I was fairly critical of Southern Maine's effort for most of the night. I thought the last 12 minutes, I think they played a lot harder. It was obviously just much too late. And sometimes, believe it or not, as an opposing player, when you're playing against that, it can start to drain your energy a little bit as well. What I would hope for is that as UMass ends up in hopefully more of these games, you got to start to develop a killer instinct where you want to put your throat on the neck of the other team. And not just win by 20 or 25. Those are games that you want to win by 40 and 50 and start making that a habit.
Let's take a look at the final team stats. UMass Boston, a big day from Charlie Mitchell with 26. Dason Sinelli coming on with 15. Nobody else in double figures. For Southern Maine, 13 from Shimon Chanel, their lone player in double figures. Probably the most important line if you're a Beacons fan. 6 points, 2 of 8 shooting from Jacoby Thomas, a guy who had scored 36 points per game in his last 2 outings. To be held to 6, that says a lot about the Beacons' team defensive performance.
Yeah, and he didn't look comfortable all night, and some of that is on him, and I think some of that is on their offense and what they're running for him. Is you have a guy who's that prolific of a scorer, you got to find ways to get him in position, regardless of switches and double teams and things like that. He's got to be involved.
Another big day from Malik Lorquet, 9 points, 12 rebounds for UMass Boston in 25 minutes. And the stat that I love, just the 1 personal foul. Take a look ahead for UMass Boston. This is a gauntlet for the Beacons going forward. Keene State on Saturday. Then you go up against the D1 Holy Cross team on Tuesday. Then you go up against Tufts, typically a really strong team out of NESCAC. The Beacons can get 1 win from those 3 games. Typically, you'd be happy. I think if you're UMass Boston, the focus is you want to be in all 3 of those games, especially the 2 games against Division III opponents. And Keene State's the first one and by far the most important.
And these are the next steps. This is, when you think about growing a program and growing it in steps, and I know Coach Harris isn't looking ahead, but when you look at it at the macro level, these are the programs that you take the next steps against. You take them against Keene, Tufts, Babson. Those are teams that play at the highest level, and if you want to get there, that's who you got to start beating.
Tufts, the Beacons' final home game of 2019-20. They travel to Suffolk next Saturday, and that is it for the 2019 calendar year. Quick look at our production crew. Most of these, ladies and gentlemen, working both ends of today's doubleheader. Gigi Braga and Kelly Danahy, your directors. Allie Crawford on instant replay. Jeff Ebbs, Beacon's athletic performance coach, joining me for both ends of today's doubleheader. Bree Colucci, Haley Catania, Ellie Valieris, Elsa Vanaco, and Colin Ford on camera. My name is Seth Dorensky. For all of us here on the Beacons Broadcast Network, thanks so much for listening and watching. We hope you enjoyed it.